Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Rookie 9 betrayed Naruto Chunin exams harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by BlackSpirit 101 and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Why? Sasuke. That fucking word left him with a bad taste in his mouth. Sasuke. It was always about Sasuke. From their training to missions. After finding out that Sasuke had ran away. Sakura, the bitch and slut she was, ran up to him with tears in her eyes. Begging for him to bring him home. Oh, maybe I should tell you who it is. Meet Naruto Uzumaki. Third Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. Also known as Ari. Yes, Naruto knew of Kyuubi being a girl. How did he know? She told him. She told him when she began to develop feelings for him when he showed her the will to never give up. She was also startled by him when they met for the first time when he told her that he didn't resent her where others would. That's right, the queen of demons fell in love with a human. So what was the problem? Well, Naruto was in a prison cell, awaiting execution. Flashback. He kept his promise to Sakura and brought back Sasuke. He was seen walking back to the gates with him on his back. 2 holes were found along Naruto's body, one pierced his lung, spilling blood into his lung and making him drown. The other was dangerously close to his heart. Ari was doing everything she could to keep Naruto's heart from collapsing. Adjusting his grip of the team on his back, he trudged forward. Seeing the gates up ahead, he began to walk a little more slowly. Dropping to the floor as blood began to pool around him, he slowly began to slip to unconsciousness. Naruto-kun. Don't fall asleep. You're almost there. Said Ari as she pushed more of her chakra into his many wounds. I know, Ori-chan. But the amount of pain I'm in is getting too much, said Naruto as he hefted himself back up onto shaky legs. Just know that there are people who care for you. Me included, said Ari. It was true. Naruto was loved by people. Not the villagers which scorned him when he was younger, not the matron of the village orphanage which kicked him out because of who he was. It was the many women who loved him. Yuga was one of them. Losing her lover, she enlisted for the Anbu after Ari's attack. Her assignment was to watch over the Jinchuriki. There she got to know the boy. Over time she began to love the man. She and him went out a few times and enjoyed their nights out. The next was Hana. Kiba's sister. When she was sick, Naruto was the only person to offer help with the taking care of the dogs. The nin dogs liked Naruto and clearly had fun with him. When Hana became better, she decided to get to know Naruto and thank him for helping her. It was only then that she found out that Naruto gave off a very powerful alpha scent. Something that all Inuzukas were after. Deciding to keep Naruto for herself should the others get their hands on him, she gave him a necklace which was that of a wolf's tooth. But it was imbued with the power to fend off other potential mates. Except for Ari. The next was Kurenai. When he was young, Kurenai was feeling down in the dumps about her family. She later found out that Naruto was the holder for the beast that killed her family. Deciding to get revenge, she plotted to kill Naruto. But when she came face to face with him, she couldn't do it and became good friends with him. The next person was Mei Terumi. The 5th Mizukage. She came to the Chunin exams to watch the fighting, and when she heard the name Uzumaki, she asked the third if it was Naruto. When the third nodded, Mei approached Naruto and told him that they were to be betrothed. Deciding to get to know each other before moving forward, she enjoyed his company. He was a very good listener. And apparently, Naruto showed her that he could be a very good man. She loved him very much. And the last person was Mocha Akasha Bloodriver. She was Naruto's first childhood friend apart from Ari. Naruto found out from Mocha that she was a vampire and Naruto didn't mind one bit. Mocha was very happy to hear that and the two became very good friends. Naruto would visit her often and he even taught her how to use chakra. Even throwing in the bonus of letting her drink his blood. But here he was. Walking back to his village holding the traitor which was the prize person to them. Who was it that stopped Gaara when he went crazy? Certainly not Sasuke. Who was it that stopped Haku and Zabuza? Certainly not Sasuke. And who was it that showed the true power of fighting for what was right? Certainly not Sasuke. Finally getting to the village gates, he saw Sakura standing there with a very unhappy look on her face. Here you go, Sakura. He didn't finish due to Sakura hitting him in the face with a punch and then sent the same fist into his gut. Sakura grabbed Sasuke and looked at Naruto who was lying on the floor. I asked you to bring him to me unharmed. Look at what you did. She spat and then rushed to the hospital as fast as her pathetic legs to carry her. Naruto just lay there as his blood flowed out again with his breath leaving him. From inside he could hear Ari growling at how that bitch undid everything she had done to keep Naruto alive. After a few minutes Tsunade walked up to him and told some Anbu which were with her to arrest him. After hearing the council, they ordered him to be executed. Flashback end. And so here he was. shackled to the wall, his hands above his head as his feet dangled below him. It was very uncomfortable as Naruto, who now looked so pale that he could be easily mistaken as a ghost. His sun-kissed blonde hair was now longer to the point where it reached his shoulders. It lost its untamed nature and gained a snow-white color from not being in the sun at all. Bags could be found under his eyes as this indicated a lack of sleep. His eyes looked like Gaara's before he got better. His eyes were so dull they looked to never be fixed again. The little ray of sunshine for Konoha had died out. "Naruto-kun. I'm so sorry," said Ari. "What are you sorry about?" whispered Naruto. "This is a mess that is because of me," said Ari. "Ari-chan. I'd never leave you sad. You saw you were in the wrong and I think you'll be a very good friend," said Naruto. "Oh, Naruto-kun. If this cage wasn't here I'd fuck you right now," said Ari. "Look at who it is," came a voice from the cell door. Looking up he saw Sakura. This was the usual for Naruto ever since he was arrested 4 months ago. His friends would come in and badmouth him to no extent. Sakura was the worst of them. But the worst for Naruto was when Hinata came to see him and then badmouth him and to tell him that she couldn't believe she fell for him. After that she proceeded to tell him that she was no longer a virgin and she sucked and fucked Sasuke. After that, she gave him a few gentle fist attacks on his body. As well, completely destroying his left arm's chakra cords. Something Ari could never fix. His left arm was useless now. After that, Kakashi came and too bad-mouthed him. After that many of the rookie teams came, apart from Neji, Hanabi, and a few others, but they couldn't stem the tide. It was a never-ending cycle of sadness for Naruto. And there was only so much a person could take before snapping. And Ari could feel that snap happening very soon. The only people who came to see him and not badmouth was those he loved. Kurenai would come in and tell him about her days while he was in prison. After that, Hana came in to see him and patch up his daily wounds inflicted on him by the others. He had burn marks, scratches and even incisions running across his body. Ari was too exhausted from expending too much chakra, so she slept while Hana patched him up. She would even often cry for him. Even though he was too tired to cry, he still felt sad that someone he cared for was crying for him. Next came Yugao. She would just sit there and tell him how she's been doing, as well as what was going on outside the prison. She too cried for him, but she did the one thing the others didn't. Just before she left, she gave Naruto a kiss on the lips and then a wink to him. Mei and Mocha were away and at the time didn't know what was happening. But even with these little shows of affection to Naruto, the monster that was sleeping inside him was waking up. And this one was something he was going to let loose. Naruto's clothes were a mess. The only thing he had on was a pair of ragged pants that were a brown color. He sure missed his other clothes, but he had to admit the jumpsuit was a sure way for him to die quickly. "So sad," came a voice from nowhere. Looking around the room, Naruto thought he was hallucinating from the lack of sleep. Shaking his head he heard the voice again. Looking at the cell door he saw a person who was inside the cell, not outside. What was going on? "Who are you?" asked Naruto. "My name is the Outsider. And you must be Naruto Uzumaki. A pleasure to meet you, young prince," said the man. "Young prince?" said Naruto, clearly confused. "You mean they never told you? You see, your name holds great power, young prince. Ever heard of the Uzumaki clan?" asked the Outsider. "Yes," replied Naruto. "They were the most powerful clan to ever exist. Their power dwarfed the Uchiha and the Senju. They were followers and worshippers of me," said the Outsider. "Okay," said Naruto. "The reason why they worshipped me was because of the power they could access from me. Ever heard of the Void?" asked the Outsider. "No," replied Naruto. "You'll soon know about it, young prince. But I'm here to bestow the power of your lineage," said the Outsider as he floated closer to Naruto. "My lineage?" said Naruto. "Yes. You are the offspring of the last princess of Yuzu," said the Outsider. "My mother was the princess?" asked Naruto. "Yes. And only those of royal blood can access this great power. The others could gain small pieces of it, but the royal family were the only ones to gain full power of it. And this is the mark of your lineage," said the Outsider as the hand on Naruto's left arm began to burn. Once it was done, Naruto looked to see a very strange symbol that he had never seen before. Burnt onto his flesh. "Come and find me, young prince," said the Outsider as he vanished. At that instant, Naruto gained the knowledge to use one ability of the Outsider. Blink it was called. As he thought about the power, his cell opened and two Anbu came into the room. "Time to die, Kyuubi brat," said the one. Heading over to the prisoner, they proceeded to open his shackles. But when his left arm was the first shackle to be removed, Naruto blinked out and knocked the one Anbu unconscious. Looking to see a kunai sticking out of his pouch, he grabbed it and spun it in his fingers. All the while he kept his eyes locked with the other. "Time for your execution," said Naruto as he stopped swinging the kunai. "You were meant to be weak." "How?" said the Anbu. "Oh that. There is only so much a person can take before he attacks," said Naruto. "Please don't kill me," said the Anbu. "Says the one who wanted my head from the very beginning," said Naruto as he smiled devilishly. Approaching him he thrusted forward and drove the kunai straight into him. Seeing he was dead, Naruto pulled the kunai out and drove it again and again and again. Soon he was laughing like a psycho as he drove the kunai in and out. Blood coated the walls as blood flew out with some landing on his face. His face distorted as he slammed the steel object into the mangled corpse repeatedly. Getting off him, Naruto looked at the one who was unconscious and stole his clothes. Leaving the mask off he looked and smiled at the clothes he now wore. He wore black Anbu pants, black shirt that reached his wrists, but he rolled the sleeves up to be at his elbows. Putting on the shoes he figured he'd have to have new ones, and he took the person's kunai and shuriken pouch. Once he was done, he hung the Anbu in his cell with the cable for the light. Once he was done with it he took the blood of the stabbed Anbu and wrote on the wall in the hanging man's right hand. This was his escape. Seeing some Anbu coming to him he blinked to be on the ceiling. Once they ran off, he jumped down and sprinted for the door. When he made it out, the sun's rays blinded him to such degrees. He counted 3 weeks he was in there. But it could be more. Blinking to the top of a roof he sprinted away. As he neared the gates he saw the execution platform with a very happy Sasuke standing on the platform. Hinata, Ino and Sakura were smiling at him and giving him lustful advances as he posed for them. "Easy Naruto-kun. You're not strong enough," said Ari as she felt Naruto's rage reach new heights. Letting his rage simmer down, he blinked to the gate but made several clones to send the people he loved a letter. With them going to deliver the letter Naruto ran back into the forest where he had to get to Yuzu. There he would find the outsider. But Tsunade. Tsunade sat at her desk as she thought about what happened over the 4 weeks while Naruto was in prison. Danzu and the council had overruled her too many times and she didn't have a say in the meetings held by them. Many of the clan heads were in an uproar about Naruto being executed while the civilians wanted him to die along with Hanzo and Kimuro. As well as Danzu agreeing with them. So in the end she was left with no say and Konoha will lose their ray of sunshine. "Lady Tsunade. Something has happened," said Shizune as she ran into the room. "What is it?" asked Tsunade. "It's Naruto. He's gone." As well 2 Anbu guards were found dead in his cell. One was killed viciously by katana stabbings while the other was knocked out and then hung from the cable for the light, replied Shizune. "Shit," said Tsunade. "Just what has become of you?" thought Tsunade as she followed Shizune. But Sasuke. Standing at the platform while Sakura cheered his name and Hinata made sexual advances to him, they failed to notice that Naruto was gone. "Sasuke-kun. I'm gonna suck you when you're done here," said Hinata as she licked her lips. "Why not do it now?" asked Sasuke smiling very cockily. "I can't hear," said Hinata. "Where is that dope?" "He's to die now," said Sasuke. But Tsunade. Making it to the cell, Swan saw what could only be described as a slaughterhouse. The stabbed corpse held a look of utter horror, no doubt his face became like this as Naruto killed him, frozen on his now cold face. The one hanging from the ceiling had his clothes stolen, but he had a mark on his right hand. It looked to be a strange symbol that she had never seen before. But then she realized it. The records for Naruto were never given to her because they could never be found. Either someone destroyed them or someone stole them. But what scared her the most was the little rhyme on the wall. It went as such. "Ring around the rosy. Pockets full of posy. Ashes, ashes. You all fall down. Come and find me." The one nursery rhyme that made any person scared. Hearing that would scare any person who wandered into a haunted house. "Dispatch units. Find him and bring him back," said Danzu walking into the room. "And who gave you the order to command the shinobi of my village?" snapped Swand. "Hold your tongue, bitch. That person is a traitor. He deserves to die," said Danzu. "And what does that make Sasuke? He betrayed the village before Naruto ran away," said Swand. Walking away and sending his own units, Danzu told Tsunade that she should listen to the civilian side rather than the clan heads. Tsunade was now very scared. The one person who she cared for was gone. Her surrogate brother was gone and now the world will be nothing. They were doomed. But Naruto. Naruto was having a blast. Blinking was so much fun. He could blink short and long distances. It was amazing. Blinking to the view of a forest, he spotted someone lying under a lot of trees that were cut very cleanly. It was Taiya. Sure he was her enemy, but now he was a renegade. So who was he to urge? Pushing the trees off her he blinked her and him to a clearing where he laid her down and began to heal her wounds. It was something he never did before, but thanks to the power of the void that flowed into him, he gained the knowledge on how to do it. Once she was healed up he blinked to an area where he and her could be safe during the night. He blinked him and her into a cave. This was just the first step to killing off Sasuke and Sakura. Not to mention the way Hinata acted towards him. It was just sickening that she acted like that. Chapter 2. Who? Naruto poked the fire that was illuminating the cave, pushing back the darkness as he sighed and looked outside. This was what he liked. The silence. The feeling of being able just relax without having someone end your life. And then it hit him. Why not wage a war against Sasuke? And only Sasuke. His life was made a living hell when everything he did only gave praise to Sasuke while he was pushed into the dark because they thought he'd never do that. Oh, how so wrong they were. It was perfect. Build up as much strength as possible, and once you have enough, end the bastard. As well, Hinata and Sakura were going to pay. Hinata was going to suffer more due to Naruto having a little crush on the Hyuga as well. And now she stabbed him in the back. Fucking bitch. His thoughts were interrupted when Taiya began to stir awake. Watching he slowly get up, Naruto noticed that she had a very nice figure. One that he had never seen before. She looked very good. "I see you staring," said Ari. "Shut it. I can't help but look," said Naruto. "You know what? If you wish to pleasure me, you can practice on her," said Ari. Naruto just shook his head as he watched Taiya slowly get her bearings. When her eyes landed on Naruto, Taiya nearly had a heart attack and tried to find her flute, which was destroyed. Naruto just looked at her and told her that he didn't want to hurt her. When Taiya found that he was telling the truth, Naruto went on to tell her that he was like her. A person with no home and no way to be in the place they belonged in. Taiya then found him to be a very good man. One that she found very odd. This boy was the one who trolled her hard when they went to get Sasuke back. Who would have thought that this person was turned against his own village? And then Naruto told her that he brutally murdered two Anbu and left the one to be hung with a cable used for a light. She was stunned beyond imagine. This person struck her as one being kind and caring. But now he turned sadist and monstric. What happened? So she asked him. Bad idea. The once kind man turned sadist told her everything. And the part that he wanted revenge on the people who did it. "I want you to come with me. I can offer you protection as well as a place to stay. And judging by that mark on your neck, you wish for a new life," said Naruto. "I do. Please help me get rid of this mark." "Help me and I'll help you," said Taiya. "Very well. Hold still," said Naruto as he reached out with his left hand. As he reached out, Yaia's eyes widened in shock. She heard of the legendary mark of the outsider. Her village were a splinter cell group that became fanatical at worshipping him. She ran away when things went too far. As in their priests killing those who were deemed unworthy of being in the presence of their god. It was genocide. If this person held the mark of the Uzumaki royal lineage, then he must be of royal blood himself. Grabbing his wrist and then pushing it away, she bowed to him with her face on the dirt. "What the?" was all Naruto could say. "Forgive me, master. I didn't know it was you," said Taiya. Clearly her past life was coming out. She just felt so unworthy to be in the presence of a royal. "Lift your head. And stop calling me master," said Naruto, now getting annoyed. Taiya looked up, shock wrapped in her eyes as she stared at the dulled eyes of the last of the royal bloodline. She could see it in his eyes that he didn't want to throw around his title. "Let me remove that seal," ordered Naruto with a slight hiss in his tone. No doubt from the annoyance. Letting his left hand touch the mark, Taiya felt reassurance that she was in good hands. She could feel the power of the void. So mighty yet so gentle when it wanted to be. Feeling the void seep into the mark, she began to wince and howl in pain as the void set to work on getting rid of the snake inside her. After a few minutes, the black energy surrounding Naruto's hand vanished along with the mark on Taiya's neck. "Thank you, my master. Thank you. I'm forever in your service," said Taiya as she bowed low to the ground. "Whatever. Just get up," said Naruto as he got up and walked off. Taiya too got up and began to follow her master. It was very strange. He carried himself with such cold confidence. It was like he was a different person down to his very core. "In Konoha. He escaped," shouted Sakura, making the entire of the rookie teams gathered wince in pain from the shriek. "Yes, he escaped," replied Swan as she drilled her ear to see if it was still working. "How did the idiot get out? There is no way a delinquent like him could do something like that," said Hinata, clearly not liking the situation. "Oh, but he did," said Swan as she threw a file to them. Kakashi caught the file and opened it to reveal some photos as well as a record of what happened. His lone eye widened as he looked from the photos to the record taken of the events. There has to be a mistake. Naruto would never do something like this. It's too out of character, said Kakashi as he dropped the file to the ground. It is. And that is what Naruto has become, replied Swan. Picking up the files, Sakura soon turned a ghostly pale and her eyes widened in shock at what she was looking at. How could a person who used to so kind and pure turn to this? It was something she had never expected. What made Naruto do this? He was such a nice guy, asked Sakura. Tell me. If you put an orange in a box and leave it there for a long time and come back to open the box once more, will you have the same orange? Asked Tsunade. Yes. Replied Sakura only to earn a slap in the face from Swan. Wrong bitch. In your world it might. Everything goes your way and the whole world loves you. But this isn't Sakura land. This is real life. Naruto, for being caged for so long. 4 months to be exact. Everything the council did to him pushed him to snapping. And this is the result. He no longer cares for us. Or any of you for that matter. Replied Swan, now returning to her calm demeanor. So what do we do now? Asked Tenten. We wait. I've sent messengers to Suna and I've yet to wait for them to come back. Replied Tsunade. Leaving the office, the rookies and their senseis went back to their doings. But Hinata saw something very weird with her sensei. Kurenai looked to be very sad and was always closing herself away from her whenever she would approach the Jinjutsu mistress. Something was very wrong. With Naruto. Making their way to one of the unnamed villages, Naruto and Taiya found out a little bit more about each other. But when they arrived at the gates, the strangest thing happened. That is where we see them now. What the fuck? Was all Naruto could say as he looked at the many people gathered before him. And then there was the little child standing before him holding his hand for all to see, the mark of the outsider. Our master and king has returned to us just like the prophecy stated, shouted the child. All hail the prince. All hail the king, said one person in the front as he dropped to his knees and placed his head close to the ground. The others followed suit by bowing as well and uttering the words he spoke. Okay. Was all Naruto could say. My master. We have kept your temple in good condition pending to your return. We trust you had a safe journey on your way here. Asked one of the men as he looked up. I did. And why do you call me master? Asked Naruto. It was said that a descendant of the last princess of the Uzumaki clan will reunite the torn clans of the Uzumaki, returning them to the one clan they used to be and return prosperity to its people. We've waited for many years, waiting for you to arrive, my master. And now that you have, we will be one once more. Said the man. Then I will go to the temple you have made for me. Said Naruto. With the people getting back up, the man led the last Uzumaki royal to the temple. When they got to the temple, it was incredible. Lining the sides was what looked like suits of armor. No doubt it was the armor for some people. But who? These armors were worn by your predecessors. The outsider imbued their armor to give them an edge in their fights. Your armor is waiting for you there. It hasn't been imbued yet, as that can only be done when you're in the presence of the outsider. Said the man, pointing to a secluded area being obscured by a purple curtain. Pushing the curtain open, Naruto saw what looked like a black suit. And it wasn't armor. Telling Taiya to wait outside while he got dressed, he began to strip. But he didn't. Instead, Naruto was opening the seal to allow Ari her freedom. Going through hand signs that he read from the forbidden scroll, he began to gather chakra. But seeing that his left arm's chakra cords were gone, he substituted void power into the mix. Hi. Said Naruto as he slammed his hand onto his stomach. In a puff of smoke, Ari was seen on the bed. Her white tails were pulled around her and her black ears were down low to show signs of submission. Her red clothes were definitely what made Naruto have thoughts. And these thoughts were a little erotic. Hey, can't blame a guy when he sees a girl with a gorgeous body like that. Hello, Naruto-kun. Or would you like to be called Naruto-sama instead? Asked Ari as she looked at him in a sultry voice. Just Naruto-kun. Replied Naruto as he smiled to her. It had been quite some time since the last time Naruto smiled. So his smile was a little crooked. Taiya burst into the room and saw the entire thing before. Apparently when the puff of smoke was heard, she was alerted to the sound of it and thought an assassin was attacking. Who is this, my master? Asked Taiya as she knelt. This is Ari. She's the Kyuubi no Kitsune. And she was and will always be a friend as well as a lover to me. Said Naruto as he winked at her. I see. Then allow me to stay and watch inside here while you get dressed. That way I can ensure your safety. Said Taiya. Suit yourself. Said Naruto as he took off his shirt with his back to Taiya. Taiya stood there, gasping at what she was looking at. 8 long scars ran across his back. 4 starting from the left shoulder all the way down to the right kidney. Then 4 going in the opposite direction from the right shoulder to the left kidney. There were also brand marks along his back as well. And running along his arms were smaller scars. Even though she saw the ones on his arms, she only saw from the elbow down. Now she saw the ones from the elbow up. If he didn't have any form of vitality, he'd be dead by now. What? Asked Naruto as he grabbed the black shirt on the bed. It's just that, your scars. How did that happen? Asked Taiya as she looked away. Something I don't want to talk about. Hissed Naruto as he walked out when he was done changing. He wore a very nice black coat with small pouches that held seals to hold many items. A black shirt that had the neck in a V shape. Black combat boots were along the things that he wore as he stepped out from the temple. Was it something I said? Asked Taya as she looked at Ari. It happened when Naruto was imprisoned. During the 4 months he was in there they tortured him. They enjoyed branding him and then whipping his body to no extent. I could only do so much from inside, but expending a lot of chakra from the time he was coming home to the time in prison was a lot to do. He is haunted every day by the time in prison. His nightmares were something I saw as well. Said Ari. That bad? Said Taya as she looked to where Naruto had walked out from. Naruto for his part was really enjoying his new look. His now snow-white hair contrasted the black clothing he wore now. Looking at the civilians gathered, he simply watched with such fascination at how they would stop what they were doing and bow to him. Then go back to doing what they were doing. Talk about loyalty. For the clothes, think on what train Hirtnet wears before he became a sweeper. My king. Came a voice from Bang Naruto. Turning around he saw a woman who was drop-dead gorgeous. Rivaling that of Ari, Mei and Mocha combined. She had long flowing silver hair, blood-red eyes. She had a very nice silver and blue sword at her waist with some silver along the gauntlets. But her overall outfit was blue with gold lining the rims. Blue top, blue skirt and blue high-heeled boots along with red stockings that came to her knees. The top and skirt was trimmed down to show off her smooth belly. Together with some red feathers in her hair. Naruto had to fight back the ever-growing blush on his face with the growing blood pressure in his nose. Who are you? He stammered. My name is Elin. My parents' predecessors served the royal family with everything they had for well over 40 years. Now it is my turn to watch over the young king just as my parents did before me. Said the girl named Elin. I see. And what exactly are you? I sense power coming from that blade. Said Naruto pointing at the sword. Yes, this is my sword. Its name is Arifel. It controls the wind. It was made from void minerals. So rare that only a select few know where to mine this metal. And this secret is not easily given up. Said Elin as a small breeze blew into Naruto's hair. I see. Can you show me where to find someone who can mine void minerals? Asked Naruto. Of course my king. Said Elin as she got up and led her leader to where she knew of the last void miners. Konoha at the time. Late afternoon. Ever since word had gotten around that Naruto was gone, Konoha had lost a lot of clients. Apparently what they thought about their precious Uchiha was nothing more than just a hoax. When Tazuna and Inari came over to see Naruto. Tsunade said that Naruto ran away and that the council had tried to get him executed. This of course enraged the pair and told the council that their whole village was pulling out from Konoha and cutting trading ties with them. When Suna heard about Naruto's escape and execution that never happened, their Kazukiage went all berserk. Both Tamari and Kankuro had to calm their brother down, but that was a mission on its own. Tsunade knew of the engagement that Naruto was in with Mei Terumi and she was praying that Mei didn't come and kill her. She knew of it when Shikishina gave birth to Naruto and they planned it with Mei's parents. Mei at the time was only 13 when her parents told her about her being married to Naruto when he turned 16. And right now, the daimyo of Konoha had restricted the funding. They still got money from him, but it wasn't enough. So Tsunade did the one thing she knew. Since her surrogate brother had run away, she and Shizune up and left, leaving Konoha to the dogs that ran it. Danzo was so happy until he realized he didn't know how to. So he alongside the elders ran Konoha. The clan heads chose to stay in Konoha, hoping that Naruto would return. But in the Hyuga case, the branch family wanted out, but the main family wanted to stay. Anabi was already working on helping the branch family along with Niji to get out. But Naruto. Arriving at a tavern, Naruto and Elin walked in. The drinkers all stopped and bowed to Naruto. All had their heads low to the ground. No one dared look at him until he deemed it worthy. But even though Naruto had now turned sadist, he still had a heart when it came to innocent people. Takeo. Come forth. Said Elin. Immediately a man with slick-back black hair walked to them. He wore a red shirt, blue pants and regular shoes. His eyes were blazed with fury at helping his master. You know where to find void minerals? Asked Naruto. Yes my king. I came from a long line of void miners. We served as the royal miners before Yuzu fell. Said Takeo. I see. Where can we get new void minerals? I need weapons. Said Naruto. In Yuzu, there was an extensive network of void minerals within a 70-click radius. I also do believe there is a shrine that only the royal family can access in the old castle at Yuzu. Said Takeo. I see. We leave at dawn tomorrow for Yuzu. Elin, you're coming too. Said Naruto. I live to serve. Said Elin as she bowed to her master. They walked out the tavern and things in the tavern went back to normal. Chatter filled the room as many of the civilians inside were now having plans on following their leader back to their home. Naruto allowed Elin to stay in the temple with him. In fact he actually insisted that she stayed with him in the temple. She felt honored that her master wanted her to be so close to him. It was just like the prophecy stated. The prophecy went as followed. From the dust of the fallen continent, a new one will emerge. The last of the last lineage will return the homeland to what it was. All those who have done wrong will meet the blade of justice as the ruler, once thought to be weak, rules over all alongside many others. She would often repeat the prophecy over and over, sometimes when she went to bed. And now she could see that this was the right time the prophecy was going to be fulfilled. Naruto was their king. And she could feel the thirst for vengeance and justice flowing off him. He was the lost heir. And now Yuzu will return to what it used to be. The empire of all nations. Chapter 3. What? Things in Konoha had gone from bad to worse. Danzu's tyrannical rule had caused a widespread poverty, and a rule of an iron fist felt people starving and resorting to stealing from each other. Chaos ran rampant as the world the villagers thought that would be a bed of roses was a bed of nails. What had they done? What brought this hell upon them? The only thing they wished was to bring an end to the beast that resided amongst them. But as it turned out, in their arrogance, they failed to see that the monster was the very person they came to look up to. They right now were sorting out ways to find him and bring him back. Their little ray of sunshine. And when he was back, everything would go back to the way it was. But what they never knew was that a certain lavender-eyed duo were doing that very reason. To get away. Hearing from Kurenai that Naruto was still alive and planning to create a new Yuzu, they were planning to go with. But they had to do it once when the main family were asleep. This was their plan and it would happen even if it killed them. Timing right now was everything. But Naruto. Taking the time to set up his tent and help out in the camp, Naruto finally turned in for the night. With Taiya and Elin choosing to stay up and keep watch over their prince and possibly their lover if he would know can't think like that. Ari slept alongside the royal child, she still couldn't get over the fact that the very man who she loved was of royal blood. Despite the fact that she was the queen of demons, they still paid attention to the world above. Which meant she was marrying a king in the future. She was marrying into a family of royal blood. She liked the sounds of that. As the other demons would want her to marry royal blood. She now had the very fundamentals to be with the man she loved. And stay. But for our prince, he wasn't dreaming, oh no. The outsider wanted to have a word with the young prince. What Naruto saw was something he never thought existed. Walking the terraforming world where objects, events and other things were frozen in time, gravity seemed to be inverted, and various objects slowly moved around in the field he had never seen before. But there was one event that was frozen in time that he stopped at. It depicted that of a woman with blood-red hair and purple eyes, giving birth, while a man with blonde hair and blue eyes had his one hand on her stomach while the other was getting crushed by the woman who was giving birth. He felt like he had seen this image before. Your parents? This was your birth, young prince. Came a voice behind Naruto. Spinning around on the balls of his feet he came face to face with the man who gave him the powers of the void. I beg your pardon. Said Naruto. These two people are your parents. The one with blonde hair was called Minato Namikaze. The Yondaime Hokage. Your father. The one with red hair was the last princess of Yuzu and your mother. Kushina Uzumaki. Stated the outsider as he looked at Naruto with the oil black eyes of his. I know of the Yondaime. He was the one who made the Hiraishin no Jutsu. Said Naruto incisively. That is true. But what you didn't know was that the Hiraishin is actually a very much downgraded version of Blink. He approached me one day when he found out from Kushina that she was the last princess of Yuzu. He asked of me to teach him how to blink. I refused the request, stating he didn't have any traces of void power in him, but offered him the chance to create a different form of it based off Blink. The Hiraishin was born from Blink if you look at it like that. Now I have a surprise for you. Said the outsider as he moved to the side. Standing right before the young prince was the very people who were his parents. Kushina and Minato Namikaze. They wore their usual clothes with Kushina wearing a green dress and Minato wearing his Hokage attire. Like and two. Said Naruto as tears welled up in his eyes at the sight of him parents before him. Sachi. Look at how much you've grown. Said Kushina as she brought out her arms requesting a hug. To which Naruto gladly gave. But you died. Said Naruto as he looked at his parents with concern. We are dead. But there is two things you must know about the void. The first is that your ancestors could all access the power of the void. As you know, those who are born into the royal family hold the power of the void in them, but when they die, they are forever placed in the void, never leaving. It is in a sense a place for us. Minato-kun is here because the jutsu he created uses a small amount of void power we call mana in it. It is at least 100th of mana. And the second thing is, you're actually a construct of the void. Said Kushina as Naruto looked shocked from hearing that knowledge. But how can that be? Asked Naruto curiously. We tried constantly to have you. Kushina here eventually decided to ask the outsider for help. You were born fully from the void. A being constructed out of mana. Said Minato. But how do I access the power? Seeing that I'm born from mana. Asked Naruto, clearly slightly shocked that he was born from the void while looking at his hand as if there was something wrong with it. You're accessing it right now. See, when you were born, you were covered in the power of the void. Mana rolled off you in waves of unbelievable power. So we sealed it away, making it look like you have a chakra network. I understand if you're angry. But please know this. Many people would have sensed your growing power should we have not sealed it away. And should they have found you, you would be taken away and then there would be trouble as they would manipulate you. Said Kushina, now very concerned. Okay. I understand. But will I use my power as a child of the void to the fullest? Asked Naruto with a glimmer of hope in his eyes. That to the royal shrine raised in my name. There I'll unlock your full power of the void. But be warned. Even though you are a construct of the void itself, you are still human. You'll be slowly turning into your former glory. Said the outsider. Then I'll meet you at the shrine. Stated Naruto. That you will. See you then, young prince. Said the outsider as he returned Naruto to his world. Waking up to hear the sounds of chatter outside, he got up, put on his shirt and walked out to find Ari helping with packing away the supplies. Stopping to see their prince awake, the people bowed to him, which Naruto told it was okay. Helping out with loading all the supplies back onto the carts, the group marched forward. But as they marched forward, the mark on Naruto's hand began to pulse. But it was a slow pulse. Blue-yellow colors spewed forth as the mark began to tell its master something. Ilan was the first to catch what was happening to the mark, apart from Naruto, who was now a little scared. What is happening? Queried Naruto as he looked at the mark that slowly pulsed. Sama. I think the mark is acting like a homing marker. It is showing you the way to the shrine. Said Ilan as she looked with such fascination at the mark that glowed. Okay. Was all Naruto could say as he let it be and walked off to the ruins of Yuzu. There all his answers will be revealed. There he would find out who he was. In Konoha. Late afternoon. Having everything ready to leave the cursed hellhole, the Hyuga branch family snuck out along with Hanabi. They knew that when the village woke up they would be labeled as renegades and most likely killed should they be found. They didn't care. The only thing that mattered is getting out. As they left the gates, they spotted a woman with black hair and a woman with long flowing purple hair running just a little further ahead of them. Kurenai-sensei. Called out Niji to the raven-haired beauty. Slowing down, Yugao and Kurenai ran alongside the branch members, making their way out of the village. What are you doing here? Asked Yugao to Hanabi. We're leaving. We wanted to have a better life. So we're leaving. You? Responded Hanabi. We're leaving too. Naruto-kun sent us a letter stating that he was alive and that he was going to Yuzu to rebuild his clan again. Stated Yugao bluntly. But if I remember correctly, Naruto-san had many lovers, being you two and a few others. Said Niji, making the entire branch family gasp in shock. The others are ahead, they're scouting the way forward. Replied Kurenai straightly. I see. Then let's go together. Said Niji, with the two women nodding in agreement, increasing their speed to get to Yuzu. With Naruto. Night. Finally making it to the Yuzu ruins, the mark of the outsider was now glowing a full-blown yellow-blue. It would glow in intensity as they walked through the once north gates of Yuzu. And it was now at the point where the mark was hurting the young prince. Naruto for his part felt like his hand was on fire. It also felt like his power was destroying his inside. Like it was either changing him into something good. Or corrupting him. We're almost at the castle. Said Taiya, pointing at the old ruined castle that rested at the very end. Everyone, find a place to stay. We start in the morning. Said Naruto as he grasped his hand with such force he hunched over as another wave of pain crushed him. Naruto-kun, I'm here for you. Said Ari as she held her love close to her chest, making the two other women gathered glare at her with such dark auras now gathering around them. Let me to the old castle. Stated Naruto as he looked at Ari, making her gasp at what she was seeing. Her love's eyes were now as the mark of the outsider. This looked more different than what she had ever thought. She had always thought the void would be subtle and yet she was proved wrong. It was more violent than her. This posed the question in her mind. Just how powerful is the child of the void? But this thought in her mind, her and Ilan took the young prince to the castle. Taiya ran alongside them, but for protection, she constantly had this feeling that Yuzu was now raided with bandits and looters. So she ran with them. Making it to the castle, Naruto dislodged himself from his helpers and began to walk forward on shaky legs, looking like they were giving way. Making it to the destroyed throne in front of his being, he slammed himself into the seat only to open a secret door behind the throne. Slowly getting up with the mark now reaching new heights of pain, Naruto trudged forward. But with each step, the noises around him died out and the only thing he could hear was the void speaking words of power into his mind. It sounded nothing like the word he knew, yet he felt that he had once heard them before. Getting to the door that had opened, Naruto looked in and found purple flames bursting forth on lamp posts on the walls that looked to be kept smooth and silky. Directly above his head ran a purple silk cloth, descending down the stairs and going to Kami knows where. Deciding to walk down the stairs, Ari and the others decided to follow him, but when Naruto walked over the threshold, the door closed immediately, sealing it shut. Slamming themselves into the door repeatedly, they tried everything to get the door open, but it just wouldn't budge. They even tried sitting on the throne, but sadly that never worked. It was all up to Naruto now. Who had been descending down the stairs for a while. As he felt that he was reaching his target, he began to hear the void words were beginning to make sense. Nothing concrete, but the words he was able to make out were things like hunters, plagues of vermin, and slow all those. Some of these words felt familiar with some of his powers he had used. But he had only unlocked Blink. What other powers could he acquire? Making his way to the bottom of the stairs, Naruto was greeted to the sight of seeing an altar at the center of the room which was circular in shape. Banners streamed forth from everywhere in the room and gathering at the altar. But what piqued Naruto's interest was the black smoke coming from the altar. Swallowing the lump in his throat he walked over, the mark was no longer burning him, but it was steaming and still giving off its yellow-blue glow. Stopping at the altar, he reached over to the middle of the stone table with his left hand and as it made contact his entire arm became ablaze with black fire. Try as he would, Naruto struggled to get his arm out, but it wouldn't budge. Looking at his arm as the sleeve to his clothes on the left side were burnt off, he saw what looked like cracks slowly moving up his arm and going to his neck, but stopped when they reached his left eye. Then the cracks that had taken form began to glow a blue-yellow color and continued glowing along with his left eye, turning into the same symbol as the one on his hand. Speaking of his left hand, it just carried on glowing, like it was now permanently on. "So this is my reincarnation," came a voice behind the prince. Spinning around as fast as possible, finding that his arm was now dislodged from the Adler, he came face to face with a man that had long black hair with hazel eyes. He wore such regal clothes and had stubble on his jawline. Judging by the way the man carried himself, he must have been quite the ladies' man. He then held up his left hand and showed Naruto his mark of the outsider, which slowly pulsed with the colors as Naruto's mark, which was responding in the same time and manner. "What the fuck is going on?" asked Naruto as he looked from his mark to the man's mark in front of him. "Nice mouth, kid. My name is Corvo Itono. I was the first person to carry the voice of the void. The voices in your mind is the void speaking its power into your mind, bestowing its blessing onto you. I know this as I had the void as well as making the contract with the outsider," said Corvo as he walked to Naruto. "I see. So I'm your reincarnation. Does that mean you're going to take over my body?" snarled Naruto as he got into an attack stance. Making Corvo chuckle in delight. "Nothing of the sort, young prince. See, before all of this even happened, I lived in a city called Dunwall. There I served the Empress as Lord Protector. Sadly, I was framed and charged with the death penalty by beheading. While inside my prison cell, I escaped and from there I met people who wished to help me in clearing my name. While I was there, I became the contractor. I became the new champion of the outsider. From there I carved a bloodly path into the empire and destroyed the men that killed the Empress. With my job done, the outsider plucked me from this world and placed me into this one. While here, I fell in love with a woman who was the priestess of the small village she lived in. And her village just so happened to follow the outsider. Others thought that he didn't exist but they kept at it. When they felt the need to call it quits, I appeared to them in the form of a blink. The outsider told me that I was to teach them to use his power, and so I did. Years after my arrival I got married to the priestess and she gave birth to my child. A healthy baby girl that I named Emily. But just as I thought it was perfect, the mark of the outsider appeared on her left hand when she was only your age. The outsider appeared to us through the shrine we raised in his name and he told us that he was feeling quite nostalgic and wanted his gift to be passed down through those of my blood. Making me, my wife along with our daughter, the royal family. From there I changed our family name to be that of the Uzumaki and we grew in size to the point where we were the most powerfulest ever to exist. But sadly, our 100 years of living came to an end in the fall of Yuzu," stated Corvo explaining his story of how the Uzumaki came around. Naruto was so entranced by this man's story that he didn't realize he was related to such a noble being. But that didn't mean Naruto's heart was cold as ice. "What happened?" asked Naruto. "All the events that I witnessed while I was alive is written down in the journal up in the bedroom quarters on the 3rd floor of the castle. Every royal member has opened the book and written what has happened in their lifetime. Including your mother," said Corvo, shocking Naruto to the core. "But my Kasen is dead. How did the boom get here?" asked Naruto, now confused. "See there. When the person who is of royal blood hasn't passed down the book and dies, the book gets instantly transported here through the void. Think of the book as a track record of what has happened," explained Corvo. "I understand," said Naruto, nodding his head. "Good. Now I did you adjourn," said Corvo as he vanished from sight to return back to the void. Have a nice chat with your ancestor. Came a voice behind Naruto. Turning to face the altar once more, Naruto saw the outsider standing there in all his godly glory. Yes. Yes, I did. Said Naruto, looking at the outside with a cold gaze. As you have noticed, your entire left arm and I have been awakened fully as the void. This will continue on a constant basis. It will feel a little sore. But you will be able to use more abolites with every growth of the cracks. Said the outsider, plainly making Naruto sweat drop. Okay. So what can I now use? Asked Naruto. You have now unlocked Void Vision, Void Beast, Devouring Swarm and Bend Time. Use these gifts as best you can. Said the outsider as he vanished from sight. But as he vanished from sight, Naruto began to convulse. He suddenly felt so hot again, and he could feel it getting stronger than anything he had ever experienced in his life. Reaching a point in his life, Naruto shouted to the heavens as he unleashed a full wave of power. Directly below his feet exploded a mark of the outsider. But the mark grew in size. Shooting across the entire continent of Yuzu, engulfing it in a beautiful display of blue and yellow. This was the way for the entire of the elemental nations to see that the Uzumaki clan had returned. The Hyuga branch family and the woman who loved Naruto saw thing unholy light and bolted in the direction of the light source. From Kurigakure, Mei was working at her desk, and soon enough she was indirectly blinded by the light that splashed into her room. When it died out to where it was only glowing, she got up from her desk and went to see that the ruins of Yuzu were now glowing in an eerie blue-yellow color. The door burst open to reveal a woman with pink hair that flowed off her goddess figure. Mei-chan. You saw that, didn't you? She said as she looked at the ominous glowing in the distance. I did, Mocha-chan. Let's move now. Said Mei, with Mocha nodding in agreement. This was just the start of the return of Yuzu. And there was a storm on the horizon, ready to take Konoha to hell. Or the void. And keep it there in eternal torment. Chapter 4. But. Steps, that was all that Naruto knew he had. The steps he had before him to get to his goal. Goals. Goals, ambitious items we so desperately seek to become a reality. But what he failed to see is that for our goals to occur and become reality, we are to give up something in order to obtain it. The full understanding of equivalent exchange. In order to obtain something of equal value must be sacrificed to allow use to gain the item we seek. And that is exactly what the young prince has done. By releasing the shackles of his chakra cords, having them burned to nothingness, he has awoken to his true nature. Chakra taken from him and being replaced with the power of the void itself. He was now a true being, born from the void itself. A true construct of the void. Walking up the stairs that he descended, he placed his hand on the door that closed behind him. The object shook and slowly rose to allow its master through. There he saw Ari, Taiya and Elin looking at him with fear. Elin was more scared than the others as she had heard of the royal family, sometimes allowing the void to temporarily take over their bodies to allow them feats of strength or more powerful attacks using the void. But what she was seeing before her was something that transcended power itself. He was now a god. The void. Said Naruto as he looked at his left hand that was smoking from the power of the void inside him. Pardon? Asked Ari, a bit shaken that her love interest now looked like this. This is just the beginning. Soon my whole body will be covered in cracks and my full power of the void will surface. The outsider told me that I shouldn't fear it. So please, don't fear me. I don't like it. Said Naruto as a wave of mana rolled off him, colliding with them. He just backed away out of fear for thinking he had hurt them. Ari just walked up to the prince and enveloped him in a hug, squeezing him as much as possible. Naruto was shocked at first, but wrapped his arms around her and sighed a content sigh of gratitude. Ari, feeling her love's arms wrap around her, smiled while she rested her head on his right shoulder, her ears lowered to show she liked it. And Naruto is 6'5", Ari is 6'3". She soon enough started purring as she felt Naruto's one hand begin to scratch behind her one ear. Naruto just pulled her further in and held her there as he felt her legs give way. Pulling away from him, she looked into his different eyes and pulled his head down to her level and planted a kiss on his lips. The mana construct was slightly taken back by the sudden move but closed his eyes and began to kiss her back. After a few minutes on trying to make the moment last, their need to breathe overtook them. Pulling away with Naruto now giving a clearly baffled face to the one that had assaulted his lips. Who was now blushing while looking away as if to hide the evidence on what she had done. What was that? Asked Naruto as he looked at her. You're not a monster. In fact, I think you're the very man that I love no matter what you become. If you were not a prince, then I would turn all hell against me to be with you. And only you. Said Ari as she looked back to him, showing her beautiful slitted yellow eyes to him. Ari? Is that a confession? Chuckled Naruto, clearly playing with her. And what if it is? What will you do? Asked Ari while tracing circles on his chest. Good question. Said Naruto as he went in for another kiss. But just as their lips were about to meet again, Elin gave a slight cough while Taya looked away, cursing at what she had just witnessed. Truth be told, in the short space of being with the young prince, she had developed some serious feeling for him. But she would not admit it. Elin-chan, Taya-chan. Please go and see where my armory and forge is. That way I can create the weapons that will be mine tomorrow," said Naruto as he held Ari close to him. Much to her enjoyment of being close to him. "As you wish, my master," they said with a bow and left to fulfill their master's wishes. But them gone, Naruto walked up the stairs that were located behind the throne. As he walked up, Ari followed him up to the master bedroom. Also known as the royal quarters. Opening the door he saw what looked like a very dusty and dirty place. It looked like it should have been destroyed long ago. But when Naruto stepped through the door, the entire room shifted to where it looked to in its original glory. The holes and pieces of rubble repaired the holes in the walls and ceiling, the bed to fixed up and regained the colors it had. Red lined the sheets and what looked like curtains streamed across the bed. The curtains for the windows too were colored red and candles dotted the sides, and a chandelier rested at the top, really bringing out the room. There even was a chest at the foot of the bed which was lined with gold edges. "Very nice," was all Ari said as she walked inside with Naruto. "So this is my quarters. This is a major step up from my craptastic apartment," said Naruto as he looked at the room from his sitting position on the bed. "You could say that again," chuckled Ari as she walked up to him and sat on his lap. "Why did you kiss me like that?" asked Naruto, making Ari look away in embarrassment. Naruto just cupped her chin and turned her face to meet his. "Remember when I told you that you could practice on Taya in order to please me?" asked Ari, now sounding to be jealous or something along those lines. "Yes," replied Naruto as he looked at her with warm eyes, even though his eyes showed a slight bit of hostility. "Well, I take back what I said. I want to be your first," said Ari as she shed tears on the chest of her love. Naruto just sat there. The Queen of Demons was asking to be Naruto's, and yet she had once said that she wanted to be pleased properly, so Naruto was to practice on Taya, and yet she had just taken back what she had said and told him she wanted to be the one to be Naruto's first. Pulling her face from his now soaked chest, Naruto looked into her eyes as they shed tears. Wiping her tears away, Naruto placed his lips onto hers, surprising her beyond anything. But she melted into the kiss and wrapped her arms around his head and pulled him closer to her. When it was things like this, she didn't feel at all like the Queen of Demons. She felt like a regular teenage girl who was having a make-out session with her boyfriend behind the fields or something like that. Pulling away from her lips, seeing the love in her eyes, Naruto smiled to her, to which she mimicked. Placing her head against his, she breathed him in. "I love you," she said to him. "And I to you," sighed Naruto as he went back to making out with her. "Lemon. I hear cheers from some of you." Pinning Naruto below her, she tackled his lips with more furiousness and more lust. Licking his bottom lip, Naruto opened his mouth and felt her tongue move around inside his mouth. Naruto's smoking left hand made its way to her plump rear and gave it a sultry slap on it, earning a mew of delight from the horny vixen. Breaking from her lips, Naruto and Ari stared into each other's eyes for a while. But that was when Ari began to strip. Losing her clothes, she looked at him with such fury and lust that it could be felt throughout the nations. Naruto's clothes just vanished, finding themselves in the nude. "I want you, Naruto-kun. I want you so bad it may kill me," said Ari, now sounding as if she was desperate. "Then what you waiting for? An invite? I'm all yours," said Naruto, smiling very cockily. Ari took no hesitation. Planting a very passionate kiss on his lips and slowly made her way to his member, which stood at attention. She marveled at the piece of meat before her. An 8-inch with a 2-inch girth. Something she will never get out her mind as she licked her lips. Slowly licking the shaft while moaning in delight just sent shivers of pleasure to shoot up Naruto's spine. The sheer feeling was alien to him, but not at all unpleasant. In fact, he just lay there as Ari then began to suck on the head while fondling his sack. Looking at her head, which slowly moved up and down his rod, he saw her look at him and wink. Naruto just lay there as the feeling felt like he was in heaven. The slurping and the feeling of the tongue swirl around with such expertise made it all the more great. But sadly, the feeling was coming to a close as he felt his balls begin to contract. "Ari-chan. I'm gonna," trailed Naruto as his mind couldn't find the means to process anything in the haze of pleasure he was getting. I'm gonna fuck," was all Naruto could say as he fired his load into her waiting mouth. Ari's eyes shot open as she felt the surge of cum from Naruto's cock. Swallowing it all hungrily, she released his member from her mouth and looked at him while moaning as she climbed on top of him. "So good," was all she could say as she dropped onto his lap. Impaling herself with his cock. The sheer feeling of having such a big tool inside her sent a small trickle of blood to flow out her. It wasn't because of the fact that she was a virgin, it was because of the fact that it entered her womb and for some reason her walls clamped down hard, caused the blood to flow down. "You okay?" asked Naruto as he looked up to her. Ari just responded by planting a kiss on his lips. "Never better," said Ari as she began to bounce on his lap. The more she bounced and moaned, the more Naruto would send void power into her, which would bring her to orgasm after orgasm. She came at least 3 times before Naruto released his load. She felt so good for having his load swishing inside her womb as she moved. Turning the tables, Naruto pinned her down into the missionary position. Thrusting forward with great speed, sending him into a desire to make her his just drove Ari to the edge more. But alas, Naruto shot his final load into her and collapsed from fatigue. Lemon end. Breathing heavily as he unsheathed himself from her, Ari looked into the eyes of her lover. Yes, Ari was 100 plus odd years old, but according to demons she was still in her 16 years of human life. Naruto pulled the blankets over him and her and snuggled into her warm body. Ari's tails wrapped around him and brought him closer. "I love you, Ari-chan," said Naruto as he kissed her on the lips, to which she responded too. "I love you too," said Ari as she fell asleep along with Naruto. From the door were 2 sets of eyes. One belonged to Taiya and the other belonged to Elin. Finding the places their lord told them to find they did, and when they went to tell him, they watched from the door as they had sex. They wanted some of that action. But the question was, how? How were they going to have their leader make love to them like he did to Ari? Deciding to think on it another time, they retired to their own rooms, which were now back to their original glory, seeing that the castle was built on top of the shrine Corvo made for the outsider. According to ancient tales, the shrine Corvo made created a well of mana that spewed everywhere, and only those of his blood could access it. And now that it was awakened, the run-down castle was mending itself. One could say, the castle was alive. With Kurenai, Yugao, Hana and the others making camp in the forestry area where the Yuzu ruins were just a few 100 miles away, they decided to make camp. Yugao decided to take first watch and headed out to where she could think on what had happened to the moment that led to this moment. Reaching into her pocket, she fished out the letter Naruto gave her before he left the leaf. It read as such. "To my lovely Yugao-chan. As you know by now, I am to be executed by Sasuke team, and the whole council will finally think that they can be great once more. I assure you, this is all lies. This letter is living proof that I am still alive. I have recently unlocked my lineage. The power of the void is mine to command. I am returning to my roots. Meaning I'm going to Yuzu to rebuild my one great clan. And I want you to be a part of that clan. I never got to tell you this, but I will anyway. I love you. I've always loved you. And I will keep loving you. I can't wait to be with you again. Please, come with me to Yuzu. I want to spend this life with you. Signed by the one you grew to love. Naruto Uzumaki." At the very bottom of the letter was a very strange symbol she had never seen before. It looked so distorted and was more different than what she had encountered regarding seals and symbols. An mark of the outsider. Pocketing the letter, she sat on a nearby rock and looked to the sky. The starry sky lit up in a display of beautiful white dots. She smiled as she felt at peace with the thought that her Naruto-kun was okay. And it wasn't just Yugao who thought of this notion, as Kurenai and Hana had too been reading over their letters and had similar thoughts to their love interest. They'd soon be together and they were planning on having that family with Naruto. Even if it would kill them. With the branch family of the Hyuga clan on the run like them, making them renegades, they decided to go and investigate that strange light when they arrived at Yuzu. Surprisingly, it was at Yuzu, which they found weird. They would never prepare themselves for when they saw Naruto and what he had become. With Mei and Mocha sprinting at high speeds, the two made quick work on trying to get to Yuzu, the ruins of an advanced civilization. A place where the populace had godlike power. It was nothing like chakra, but yet it seemed to have the same concept. Mei was the only one to know the truth, as she was given a copy of the records of Naruto by Hiruzen when he was still alive. Deciding to call it a night, the two set up camp and went to bed. Well, Mocha chose to while Mei went over the documents given to her by Hiruzen. The documents read as such. Name: Naruto Uzumaki. Full name: Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze Itono. Descendant of Corvo Itono, possible reincarnation. Mother: Kushina Uzumaki Itono. Father: Minato Namikaze. Description of life. Born as a being constructed entirely of mana. Born from the void itself. A powerful realm where all Uzumaki are able to draw power from. Fake chakra system to keep his power a secret from other people who wish to manipulate him. Warnings. Should the void awaken inside him, he'd regain his godlike power. Body will experience strenuous pain, but will be awakening process running its course. Came close to awakening once. When born, Naruto gave of powerful waves of mana. His body was covered in the smoking color of the void itself. Use precautions when power surfaces. Closing the file, Mei sighed at what was kept from her. Sure, the betrothal only happened when she went to meet the Uzumaki Namikaze Itono family. But she only saw the future parents who were excited to finally have Kushina pregnant. In a sense, the child that was born was like a son to the outsider. Smiling at this thought, she put out the fire and went into the tent and fell asleep alongside Mocha, who was happily sawing logs and leaving bite marks in her pillow while muttering that Naruto's blood tasted so good. The next morning, Naruto himself felt so good. His eyes slowly fluttered open and he found Ari to not be with him. Instead, there were two things that invaded his sense of touch and the sense of sight. For the sight was the large bulge where his waist was, and the sense of feeling was the feeling of something wet and it feeling good on his morning wood. Pulling the blankets off, he came to the side of Ari, sucking him off as she rubbed his inner thigh. Deciding against it to not disturb her, he just lay there as he soon fired his seed into her mouth, which she swallowed hungrily. "Enjoy your breakfast?" asked Naruto as he looked at Ari, who had distaked her mouth from his cock. "Very much, Naruto-kun," she purred as she got off the bed and got dressed in her clothes. "I'll ask if anyone can make clothes so we can get you new ones," said Naruto as he watched her put on her clothes. "Thank you, my love," said Ari as she winked to him and left the room. Smiling at the notion of what happened, the sound of something invaded his ears. It sounded like a song, but it wasn't a song being sung by a woman. No. It gave off a very different pitch, if you wish to call it that. Materializing his clothes, he walked around the room. He found the sound was coming from the chest at the foot of the bed. Walking over to the chest, he opened it and behold, he bared witness to a strange object that looked to be made of bone with the same mark as the outsiders inscribed on the face of the bone. "What the hell?" was all Naruto could say as he picked it up. But when his hands came in contact with the object in question, he felt his power increase to new heights, and in that instant he was encased in mana. The black power swirled around him and in the blink of an eye, he vanished and reappeared at the gates that he and the surviving Yuzu citizens walked through. Looking around, he wondered as to how he got there. He saw Elin looking at him while pointing to the object in his left hand. "That is a rune, Sama. It was used to upgrade your powers by exchanging them with outsider Sama in the presence of the void." "Where did you find it?" asked Elin, walking up to her master. "Oh no. I heard this strange song and walked around the royal chamber trying to find the sound. I opened the chest at the foot of the bed. And the next thing I know is I grab this thing and I find myself here," said Naruto. "It must be the fact that you're a construct of the void. Runes have no effect on you, so they now serve a different purpose," said Elin as she donned a thinking pose by placing her fist on her chin. How the girls to the thinking pose. "Of course. Runes are objects imbued from the void itself. Seeing that you are now the void, runes seem to boost your synchro ratio with the void, your source of power, boosting your overall strength to new heights. Which means, runes to you are now amplifiers," said Naruto, looking at the rune in his hand as it continued to sing and gave off its black smoking color. "Correct, Sama," said Elin as she walked up to him. "If you wish, I can teach you all the different powers you can gain," said Elin with a blush on her face. "I'd like that. Thank you," said Naruto as he too blushed and couldn't help but look at her ample cleavage. A clear advantage she had, and she seemed to not be afraid to use it. "Yes. This way I can get with him." It was after all the royal protector's job to learn the different powers their king or queen or both held. "This way I can begin to see if he'll love method," Elin as she mentally high-fived herself. End scene. Chapter 5. Say. Walking into his quarters, Naruto's mind clicked. The outsider mentioned that the royal Uzumaki rode in the general, only they could open that somehow got transported here. Searching through the various possible hiding places in the room, he opened the drawer next to the bed and behold. Nothing. Sighing as he had searched everywhere, he began to close the drawer, but his mark flashed twice with its trademark color, along with the cracks on his arm. The inside of the drawer respawned in the same manner. Instantly the book he'd been searching for materialized into existence before him, and he saw there was a symbol of the outsider engraved on the cover. Grabbing the book, his mark flashed twice with the engraving responding in the same manner again. A clicking sound was heard and Naruto opened the book and began to read its contents. The first page was in Corvo's handwriting. It read as followed. "Waking in this still strange world, I wander around as if I were a beast hungry for something to sink its teeth in. Despite being in this new world, the people seem nice. And for some reason they treat me like a sort of god. They keep saying that their master, the outsider, did everything in his power to bring me here. He just said that my job wasn't done yet and just dragged me here like some child in need of a smack. At least the people here are nice. I've found it to be quite enjoyable to live in peace instead of me having to watch my back. As well, I somehow get the feeling that the priestess, who I landed into when I arrived here, likes me. But it could be my imagination." "Naruto-sama," came a voice at the door. Turning to look at the person who had gotten into his quarters, he saw Elin standing there with an object that was singing. And Naruto knew exactly what it was, another rune. But this one gave off a different pitch than the one for his blink ability. "What is it, Elin?" asked Naruto as he looked at her. I found this in the library. It was hidden under a shelf I accidentally knocked down. I'm sure you know what it does," said Elin as she walked over to her master. Despite knowing that he was her king and master, she had to keep it strictly professional. It was something she had to do if she wanted to keep her master happy. Handing him the rune, she watched as to what would happen. But with Naruto it was the worst thing ever, having to have the rune recognize him as the new master of it. When his hands made contact with the piece of enchanted bone, Naruto's eyes began to burn like 1,000 suns. Shouting in pain as the feeling increased in intensity, Naruto's void power gathered around him and began to swirl in a raging inferno. Rushing to her master's side, she placed a hand on his shoulder and felt what could be described as if she was in the Arctic regions. His skin was ice cold. Finally calming down, Naruto opened his eyes and Elin gasped in shock and fear at what she saw. Her master's eyes were full black with the mark of the outsider as the iris in both of the eyes. As well, they were smoking with black fire. "Naruto-sama. Your eyes." There she trailed as she looked into the eyes of Naruto. "I see," started Naruto. "What is it?" she asked as she went to her master's side to assist with anything. "I can see everything. Full depth perception. Everything. I can see Ari-chan at the fountain right there. She's sitting on the ledge sipping on what looks like tea while some animals are gathering around her. She's so close, like I'm right there," stated Naruto pointing at a direction. Following his finger, she walked to the window and looked around, narrowing her eyes to see just that bit further. She found she couldn't see anything. Seeing a set of binoculars by the window, she grabbed them and looked through them. Her eyes widened in shock as to what she was seeing. Approximately 1,000 meters away, sat Ari at the fountain located deeper in the ruined city. Doing exactly what Naruto stated, with animals gathered around her form while she sipped her tea. Dropping the binoculars, she turned around shaking like a leaf. "Naruto-sama. She is 1,000 meters away." "What was that?" asked Elin, her voice shaking along with her shock. "I think that must be the rune." "Hold this," said Naruto as he chucked the rune to her, which she caught. The symbol left his right eye and the smoking like burning eyes ceased to be, but he was still using void vision. Looking around, he found he couldn't see further anymore, like his vision was limited by something. He could see Elin and a few objects in his quaders and an even fewer outside his quaders. Requesting the rune again, he felt his mana skyrocket once more and he found he could see further. Putting the rune down and deactivating his void vision power, he deduced that the rune was to enhance his void vision power to where he could see further. As well as making everything more clear. "Young prince." Came a voice and both Naruto and Elin turned to the corner to see the outsider hovering there. Elin immediately dropped to the ground in a kneeling position before her god. To be in the presence of the outsider was everything to the Uzumaki, but to speak to the outsider would be a major boost in reputation. But that was on a different level, only the royal family ever spoke to the outsider. "Yes, outsider-sama?" asked Naruto as he got up and walked over to the void god. "You have found the only 2 runes to ever be made before the fall of Uzushio. Before the fall, the people would hunt whales and take one bone from them, being from the center bone in the spine, and carve my mark into them. From there I'd imbue them with my power. The royal family and a select few were the only ones to access my power from them. Reason why I'm telling you this is because I want the people to start hunting whales again. Hunt whales and bring their bones to me so I can make more runes for you. The void calls for you to unlock all your power. I wish for that to happen. I want you to be at your highest peak. But seeing that they aren't like you, the runes would vanish when acquired. But when a royal child is born, the runes reappear. But you're a different case. As you are the void," stated the outsider. "Of course, outsider-sama. But may I ask why whales?" asked Naruto, crossing his arms. "Whales hold a very unique ability to hold my power. They hold a passive ability to retain whatever magic is placed into them. That is why we use whale bone for my runes," said the outsider. "Okay," was all Naruto said. "There is a nice herd of whales not too far from here. By the shoreline you'll find them on the south side of the coastline," said the outsider. "I know the place," said Elin. "Very well. We'll go," said Naruto with the outsider vanishing. "But the miners going after the minerals I asked for, we might as well go and hunt some whales." As the out. "Naruto-sama. Naruto-sama," shouted a child running into the room. "What is it, child?" asked Naruto as he knelt to the child's level. "Bandits. They've taken the people there hostage. They seek to kill them and take the women for entertainment and pleasure. My Ka-san is one of them. Please save my friends and family," said the child with tears streaming down his face. "Elin, we're going," said Naruto, which made Elin nod her head. Bringing out his rune which boosts his blink power, he grabbed Elin and blinked. But with his new blink power running at a higher throttle, when he blinked, what sounded like thunder clapping echoed when he blinked, as well as a blinding white light leapt from Naruto when he used the power. It was so loud and even the sky darkened a bit from the power. Some of the people got a scare while others just moved around unfazed at what happened. Heading there, Naruto felt a little weird. For some reason, his power felt weaker than what it was at the castle. What was going on? Looking from their hiding place in some shrubs, they watched the people gather the women into an area while some of them laughed. But one of them had what looked like a weird box strapped over his shoulders with his hands resting on the winder. A music box that screws with your powers from Dishonored. Sealing away his rune which formed a rune-shaped symbol on his right forearm, he blinked into one of the bandits and killed him instantly by grabbing his hair and slicing his head clean off in one smooth motion. All with a sadistic grin plastered on his face. "Uzumaki!" shouted one of the bandits. Instantly the one with the overgrown music box began to wind the box. A horrifying disgusting sound echoed through Naruto's ear who dropped to the floor clutching his ears in pain. The box. He realized. It was limiting his connection with the void. His source of power. Blood slowly trickled down from his nose as he death-glared the one with the music box. Well. We heard that the Uzumaki heir was a person who gained the power of the void, but you don't see it. We own these lands. Seeing that you're young, I'll let you in on something. We're also responsible for the fall of Yuzu. And with you here, the Uzumaki royal bloodline. Your cursed bloodline would die here," said the one bandit as he lifted his sword into the air. Just as he was about to bring it down, Elin shot out of her hiding spot and smacked the guy 3 meters away from her master. But that was when she realized it as well. That music box was cutting her off from drawing out Arifal's power. She was also feeling very weak. Over the years of training her body on getting used to her father's sword, the sword in a sense grows into you, allowing you to indirectly access the power of the void. She was now left in the same position as her master. Dropping her sword, she began to heave as she forced her body to breathe. "Some guard you are. You're very hot. I'll have you first. Watch my back boys," said the one bandit who was clearly calling the shots. Walking over to her while he undid his pants, he smiled evilly. Pushing her down, by grabbing her throat and slamming her into the ground, damaging her vertebrae in the process, he began to position himself at her entrance. All she could do was lie there with tears running down her cheeks as to what was going to befall her. But Naruto who was seeing this all forced his body to forcibly reconnect with the void, pushing all his physical energy he blinked and tackled the bastard to the ground. Elin just laid there, shocked at the choice of action for her master which he took. And now all she could do was lie there as she watched him, punching the man in the face repeatedly, while shouting that he will never be a true man, as long as he would assault women like that. His eyes were ablaze with fury, his mouth foamed with rage as he drove his fist non-stop into the man's jaw. Blood flowed from the man's jaw as blood decorated Naruto's fist. Thinking that he has had enough he got up on shaky legs from the adrenaline coursing through his body, he death-glared the one with music box. Slowly walking to him, Naruto's body began to take on a new form. Mana seeped from the ground and slowly began to cover his body to where he was now just a regular orb of black void power. But that was when the orb exploded and out from it emerged an entirely different entity. Shadowy deity that moved with both speed and death. When it moved, what looked like tendrils of shadows shot out as if it was imitating the way a beast walks. Its unholy purple eyes gazed at the assailants gathered and vanished in the blink of an eye. "Where is he?" asked the one bandit as they desperately scanned the area for any traces of where the beast went. One of the bandits looked down and saw what could be described as a tail to emerge out of the one with the music box's shadow. The apparition was as long as the person's body and had what looked like a stinger-type spike at the end of it. "It's behind you," he screamed as he pointed at the man's shadow. Realizing his cover was blown, the beast drove in a tendril of pure mana into the man's back, impaling him and instantly killing him in the process. Jumping out of the shadow, the beast charged with great speed and took one of the other bandits out. Looking back with the dead bandit in its mouth. Blood gushed everywhere as its purple eyes glanced at the other bandits. Elin found she could breathe again, as well as Himana returning to her. But getting up was out of the question, her back was damaged and she would only get up in a few hours, maybe even a few days. So she settled on watching the bloodbath. "So this is the void beast. It's even more powerful than what my parents told me," she said to herself as she watched the beast jump into the air and SLM as if it were a meteor into the ground, causing spikes of mana to rise up and impale a few of the bandits. It didn't take long for them to all be dead and gone. The beast roared to the heavens and reverted back to normal. To reveal the king the populace of Yuzu came to see him as. The women all cheered and praised his name for what he did, children too followed their mother's example and cheered for him. Naruto was surely going to do something about those bandits. But he'd worry about that at a later stage. Walking over to Elin who just lay there he began to access her injuries by pushing in mana into her body. Elin for her part was flabbergasted that her own king would stoop to levels just to see if she was okay. "Why save me?" It is the duty of the royal protectors to defend the king and queen even if it kills them," said Elin as she felt her bones mend themselves thanks to Naruto's power. "I don't care what you say. My reason is my own to save you," said Naruto as he continued to push his power into her. "But still. I'm a nobody. You shouldn't waste your time on someone inferior like." Slap. Naruto's hand smacked through her face. His eyes ablanced with anger and rage as his right hand turned red from the slap. Even though he didn't like hitting a woman, he had to make Elin stop saying those words. Despite the rage, he felt someone sick for doing that to her. "I don't give a fuck on who or what you are. Elin-chan. I consider you to be more than a servant. You are a person with feelings and a heart," said Naruto with his mana swirling around him in a violent manner, showing that he was serious. "But, I am sworn to protect you. I do as you wish," said Elin. "Then I forbid you from taking my assumption and asking me instead. I don't want to see anyone get hurt in front of me. I don't want any of those I care for to be hurt. I want you all to be safe. Including you," said Naruto as he finished healing her injuries and helped her to a sitting position. "Why you don't want me to get hurt?" she said as her voice became heated with embarrassment. "Yes. I don't want to see you get hurt. I consider you as someone who I want to protect," said Naruto. That's very nice of you, Naruto-sama," said Elin as she turned her head away from her leader, desperate to hide the blush adorning her face. "No. Just Naruto," said Naruto as he got up and held out his hands. "Oh of course. And Naruto," said Elin as she took his hand. "I want you all to move closer to the castle. That way you can be safe. Just until we've gotten the defenses up and running. In the meantime, I'll have clones patrol the area," said Naruto with the people nodding their heads. "Of course," they said as they went to pack up their things. Deciding to patrol the area to give the people protection until they were ready to go, Naruto walked around the lower city with Elin walking behind him, who was blushing a deep red similar to the color of a tomato. "He really does care for me. I can't believe he said he cares for my well-being," she thought as they carried on moving around the suburb. "Elin, I want you to now live in the castle with me. You'll be treated with every ounce of love and respect equivalent to that of a queen. As well, so will Taiya," said Naruto, further cementing his show of care to her. "Thank you Naruto," she said blushing even deeper. Yup, she was now developing a crush on her leader and master. But the question was, did he feel the same way to her? With everything packed up and ready to go, they made their way to the upper district of the city. Getting there, Naruto summoned up some 1300 bunshin and had them patrol the area in a 2000-meter radius. With that sorted out, Naruto got Elin settled in the one room on the second floor of the castle, to which she thanked Naruto for. Sitting on his throne, Naruto breathed in a sigh of exhaustion. But just when he thought it was all okay, the doors flung open to reveal a blur of black and white that slammed into Naruto, making him gasp in surprise. "What happened? I heard you were in a fight with some bandits," she asked as she sat on his lap and stroked his hair. Showing her deep love for Naruto, which for some reason went a bit too far. "Yeah, they had some weird music box that blocked and limited my connection to the void. It was as if I was left helpless," said Naruto as he ran his left hand along her back, making her shiver in delight from his touch. "Then in the future, take me with you," said Ari as she placed her head against his. "Count on it my love," said Naruto as he placed a kiss on her lips. To which she moaned into and flung her arms around his neck, pulling him deeper into the kiss. As they kissed, Naruto's mind suddenly clicked. The altar directly below his throne was a shrine in itself. But there had to be something deeper than that. When he touched the shrine the first time, he felt like it was an endless pit of something that he couldn't describe. It was very different to what he felt when he first awoke the void inside him. It felt like something more ancient. Something that felt like the deep layers of the void itself. Something that was there, waiting to be awakened again. But he'd put that on for another time. He was right now making out with his bombshell of a demon girlfriend on his throne. Take about being kinky. Chapter 6. Sorry. Adding his eyes to slowly wake up, Naruto found himself in his quarters with Ari snuggled up next to him on his left side. Her left arm was wrapped around his torso, and her left leg was wrapped around his waist. She was purring as she moaned into his form more. Smiling, Naruto went to stroke her one ear. This only made her shiver in delight as she adjusted her form lying up against him. Naru-chan. That feels good. She purred as she adjusted herself to be on top of his chest. Still asleep, she was now snuggling into his chest as she kept moaning his name. "Glad you think so," said Naruto cockily as his other hand ran along her back, making her gasp this time in pleasure. "Knock knock knock." "Yes?" asked Naruto when he heard the knock. "Naruto? We've got a problem," said Elin from the other side of the door. "What is it?" asked Naruto as he sounded distraught at what the problem was. "Some people have arrived stating that they know you," As well, one of them said that they were your lovers, the one with black hair handed me a letter bearing the mark of the outsider. Stated Elin. That's Kurenai-chan and the others. Who are the others? Asked Naruto sounding relieved that his girlfriends were all okay. They say they're the Hyuga branch members. They wish for sanctuary here. They're even willing to be placed under your command. Added Elin. That must be Niji. Heh, always going on about how he wants the branch members happy. Permission granted. Tell them I'll be down soon. Said Naruto. Of course Naruto. Said Elin as the sounds of footsteps walking away could be heard. Smiling at the fact that Elin was now calling him Naruto instead of Naruto-sama was a great improvement, but he couldn't help but feel that there was something she was hiding from him. Deciding to talk to her when he had some free time, he looked down at the sleeping form of his lover Ari. Leaning down, he kissed her forehead, which made her face relax more and made her moan as well. So how long are you planning on pretending to sleep for? Asked Naruto as he stroked her hair. As long as it takes. Said Ari as she opened her eyes and kissed Naruto on the lips, to which he gladly accepted and kissed her back with more force. Bedding off him, she got dressed and watched as Naruto's clothes materialized onto him. She then took his hand into her own and they walked out the room and down the stairs to where the throne room was. Getting there, Naruto sat down while Ari stood by the throne like any woman would do if they were in royalty. Naruto-kun. Is that you? Asked Hana as she looked at Naruto with eyes that held shock and terror. Despite the changes she and the others saw when Naruto was in prison, being the snow-white hair. And seeing that the bags under his eyes were gone meant that he had been getting a comfortable sleep. But with the whole arm having cracks in it, the different left eye and the constant glowing tattoo on his left hand only spelt one thing for them. Naruto-kun. What happened? Asked Yugao, smacking the question all three girls had in their heads into proportion of one simple question. Yugao slowly walked up to the throne, only to have Taiya, who was hiding, to jump out while holding a katana in her hands, with said blade at Yugao's throat while she glared bloody daggers at her. Don't even set one foot near my master. Tramp. Snarled Taiya as an aura of malice engulfed her. He's my lover. And why would you care? Slut. Sapped back Yugao. Shut the fuck up, bitch. Shouted Taiya as she charged with everything she had. That's enough, Taiya. Shouted Naruto, instantly making Taiya come to a screeching halt. But master. She could be aspire something along those lines. Said Taiya in a sheepish voice. She's not. She, along with Hana-chan and Kurenai-chan, are my lovers. Please refrain from trying to decapitate my lovers and friends. Said Naruto as he rubbed his one temple. As you wish. Said Taiya as she fixed herself and sheathed the katana and walked off. Now that mess is sorted out. Niji-san, Hanabi-san. Why come here? Asked Naruto, turning his attention to them. We wish to have a better life. Ever since your imprisonment, the main branch has been getting meaner. They thought you had raped Hinata and decided to take their anger out on us. If Hanabi hadn't helped us, we'd have been dead by now. Said Niji. And this seal you showed me during outmatch. Is it still there? Asked Naruto, getting up from his throne. Hi. Said Hanabi without hesitation. Meet me outside. I'll remove them once I'm finished here. Said Naruto. Hi. Said Hanabi and Niji, and they walked out the castle, leaving Kurenai, Yugao and Hana to stand there staring at Naruto with wide eyes. Naruto-kun. What happened to you? Asked Kurenai as they watched Naruto get up from his throne and walk to them while smiling a very warm smile. It happened when I broke out of prison. After I killed those two Anbu, I ran away. From there I found that girl, Taiya, trapped. So I freed her and now she serves me, but I don't like servant-master relationships. Though her temper always seems to be a problem. From there, we went to an unnamed village which turned out to be a village full of survivors of the Uzumaki clan. And according to them, I'm the last heir. My mother, Kishina Aka-sen, was the last princess of Yuzu. Long story short, I am their king and they serve me. Said Naruto, stopping in front of them, which made them bring him into a bone-brushing bear hug. We're just so glad that you're okay. You had us worried and we hoped you were okay. But what is this? Asked Kurenai as she ran her hand along Naruto's cracked left arm, while Hana's hand made its way to his cheek, which showed a bit of the cracks. It happened when I fully awoke the void within me. Turns out my chakra cords were fake, and when I awoke the sleeping void inside, my cords were burned to a crisp, and in its place I'm the void made flesh. The outsider told me that I can access more of the powers I hold the more the cracks spread. Said Naruto as he showed them the cracks running along his chest as well. Turning to Ari, who just stood there with a smile on her face, Naruto introduced her to them, and they were found in a state of shock when they learnt that this woman was the very woman who was the Kyuubi no Yoko. Deciding to address this now, the girls took Ari and decided to have a nice good long talk with her. Naruto went to where the Hyuga branch members were gathered and found Niji having a very nice conversation with Hanabi, who came to view the prodigy as a brother more than a cousin. Getting their attention, Naruto summoned up all his strength and called forth the void to get to work. By pushing his mind into the void he gained superior insight on everything known about the clan's history and various other things. Taking a mental image of the cage bird seal, he broke it down to its most basic function and managed to create a removal seal. But what got his blood boiling was the fact that the cage bird seal seemed to be a stolen version of the tripronged seal used on him to hold Ari at bay. The Hyuga must have stolen some scrolls from them and made their own version from the tripronged seal and called it the cage bird seal. Too bad, it seemed this version still had its core function similar to the Uzumaki ways of sealing. Pushing his power into the seal he watched it break like a twig being stepped on. From outside, all branch members felt the cage bird seal break as if it weren't even there. Pulling off his hit-ite, Hanabi gasped in shock as what she saw. Niji's cage bird seal was gone. It was a dream come true. Thanking Naruto by bowing to him, Naruto assured them that it was okay and that he'd be more than willing to give them enough space to grow into their own Hyuga clan. But the new members that would be produced along with them will serve Naruto for all time. The void was not idle either in this matter. Fishers of the void scurried about, repairing buildings and streets, returning the city to its original glory, to be the proud homeland of the Uzumaki and the void again. Naruto was very happy with this knowledge. Walking past a building that had just had the roof placed back on it, making it back into the boutique shop, it was a voice sounded behind him. "Naruto-kun? Is that you?" asked a voice from behind. Turning around and gasping at who he was seeing, Naruto nearly had a heart attack. Mocha and Mei Terumi, his fiancée and childhood friend. Mei had tears of joy in her eyes and Mocha was more happy than anything else. But something caught their eyes. His left arm and eye, as well as the left side of his face, had crack in them and his left eye was different to what they thought it used to be. "Are you okay, Naruto-kun?" asked Mocha, now very concerned for Naruto. "I'm very much fine. This is just a result of me awakening the void. My original source of power," said Naruto, making Mei nod in understanding. "I see, now that your body is more mature to handle the void's power, you have unlocked it. When if it were left alone in the past, you would be under serious strain and eventually die," said Mei, this time making Naruto cross his arms and nod in affirmation. "So this is your true power?" asked Mocha, trying to understand what was going on. "Yes, this is my true power. This is what my body would look like if I had the full power of the void inside me," said Naruto as he turned around to see a whole bunch of women and children, along with some of the men walking to them with fisherman-grade harpoons. "And where are you going?" asked Naruto. "To hunt whales, Naruto-sama. Elan-sama told us that you wish to expand your power in a boosted capacity," said the one man as he adjusted his grip on the harpoon. "Very well. Come back in one piece," said Naruto as he stepped aside for the fishermen to go and hunt whales to carve the mark of the outsider into them. Just like their ancestors did before them. Leading his fiancée and friend to the castle, Naruto opened the doors to the great throne room to show the sheer brilliance the castle held. Polished marble flooring, pillars of polished cream color, decorated the sides, while banners of purple hung from the pillars. Decorated stained windows lined the sides, allowing the beautiful sun to pierce the room, but at the end of the room was the throne that Naruto sat on. A flight of stairs on either side of the throne leading up to the second floor where Naruto's cameras lay and various other rooms were. Directly behind the throne was the stone door that opened when Naruto first got here. But it was now a polished white marble slab with the mark of the outsider adorning the face of the door. But the throne was the most beautiful piece of work. It too was made of white marble, but it had a soft-like cushion on it, looking like the cushion was built into the throne. A red cloth wrapped around the base of the throne and the cloth extending to the top. And think of the Overlord's throne from Overlord 2 before you upgrade everything. "Very nice, Naruto-kun," said Mocha as she looked around the throne room. "Thank you. This is where the main shit happens. My quarters at the second floor and the other rooms are for whoever. As well, may I thank you for always being there for me," said Naruto as he hugged them. Running their hands along his back, their faces cringed at what they felt. Sure, they felt what felt like muscle, but what felt like scratches along his back were what were felt the most. Pulling away from Naruto, they both looked into his eyes while Mei asked the question on both their minds. "What is up with your back?" asked Mei. "It happened when I was in prison. I was beaten within an inch of my life and Ari-chan did everything she could to keep me alive," said Naruto as he opened his shirt to show them the latest mark, which was located on the right side of his chest, opposite to the fist-sized scar on the left side of his chest. The scar was a kanji brand for demon. "This was the latest one they gave me. They said it was what I deserve." "Heh, the two Anbu I killed were the ones who put that on me," said Naruto as he pulled his shirt back on. Telling them to make themselves at home, Naruto decided to pay a visit to his library to find out more about his powers. In order for him to become a full master of his powers, he had to put in the hours to learn how to harness them, expand them, and evolve them if possible. Opening the library, he saw Elin bust going through the various books stacked on the shelves. She seemed to be searching for something, but didn't know what. Coughing to get her attention, she nearly fell over from the fright. Naruto saw this and blinked to help her. Unfortunately, she fell on top of him, opening her eyes while complaining that the fall saw sore. She opened her eyes and noticed how close her face was to Naruto's. Shooting her head back, she began her 1,000 apology essay about how she'd not do that again, only to have Naruto place a finger on her lips and move his head to hers, bringing her lips to his. Her eyes widened in shock at the reality at what was happening. Her king was kissing her while his tongue licked her bottom lip. Slowly closing her eyes, she gave into the kiss and wrapped her arms around his neck, bringing him closer to her. She deepened the kiss. They broke apart when breathing became a necessity. Looking into Naruto's eyes, she found him to be more handsomer up close. Everything was where it should be. Not Babe Fat, no, nothing of that shit. He looked to have the face carved by angels. Naruto. She chimed as she dove in again for another kiss. This time Naruto was taken back. He kissed her because he thought that was what people do in a close-up situation. Only to have this girl kiss him after he kissed her. But just like Elin the first time. He allowed her to explore his mouth by opening it for her tongue. And once again, they pulled away for air. Naruto. Eye to eye, she stammered as her eyes darted from his to somewhere else in the room as she sat on his lap. It's alright, Elin-chan. I feel the same way about you. Said Naruto as he ran his hand along her cheek. Really? She asked, sounding like she had been given an award. Yes. I want us to be something more than this. Said Naruto, making Elin bury her face in his chest, blushing up a storm. Going in for another kiss, they found this one to be filled with more passion than the others. This one was filled with passion and love. Love and the sheer feeling of wanting each other. Heating it more, Elin pushed Naruto to the floor and ran her hand along his body, while Naruto's hand did the same. That was when they heard someone cough at the door. Breaking their kiss and looking at whoever was in the door. It was Taiya. Crossing her arms over her chest while blushing at what she saw, she told Naruto that some people were caught at the main gate and were requesting to see him. It was an emergency, the people told her. Getting up, Naruto walked out with Elin in tow. Reaching his throne, he sat down and saw the people were Gaara and his siblings. Smiling a warm smile, Naruto welcomed his surrogate brother with open arms to the Yuzu lands. Deciding to get down to business, Naruto asked why Gaara was here in his lands. I seek to help rebuild Yuzu. But seeing the country repairing itself is something I never expected. So, how about we set up trading ties instead? Said Gaara, which made Naruto nod his head. As well, Gaara didn't bother asking why Naruto's body looked like this, as one night the outsider visited the young Jinchuriki in a dream and told him to meet Naruto in Yuzu. He did that and look what he found. Exactly what the outsider stated he'd find. I agree. As well, any and all people you wish to have live here. We have more than enough room. Said Naruto, making Gaara nod in understandment. After getting the meeting out the way, Gaara and his siblings left, leaving Naruto to just sit there looking like he was tired. Then he remembered something. Asking Taiya to get him the books about the void from the library, the foul-mouthed teen ran off to get the books, only to have one of his clones come up to him and tell him that there was a group of people at the gate. And they were demanding to see the leader. Asking Elin to go and bring them here, she nodded her head and left the castle to get the people to the throne room. At the gates. How long is this going to take? They should be happy that a powerful being like myself is gracing these lands. Said the boy, his raven black hair. Sasuke-kun. You know these lands are owned by someone out of legend. Said a girl with navy blue hair. I don't care, Hinata. These people should be here, serving on hands and knees. They could never hope to beat me. Sneered Sasuke as he tapped his foot in impatience. Sasuke. Remember why we are here. We're here to get answers to find where Naruto had vanished to. If we can get him back into the leaf, we can be glorious again. Said Kakashi as he looked up from his book. Yeah, right. You just want someone to play punching bag for your precious toy. Go suck his cock in those bushes there. Said Tenten in a harsh tone while pointing at some bushes near the gates. That was when they were interrupted when Elin walked to them and told them the prince would see them now. As they walked, Sasuke's eyes couldn't help but look Elin up. Those gorgeous hips. Fantastic legs and nearly E-cup breeds were what he wanted. Hinata and Sakura were just toys, but this woman, he wanted to have her to produce powerful children. So he became cocky and walked beside her. Hey, good looking. How about you come home with me? Produce my children and you can go to your parents and tell them you're fucking a powerful Uchiha like me. Said Sasuke with a cocky smirk. No thank you. I already have my heart stolen by the prince of these lands. And if he finds out as to what you're doing to me, he will kill you. Said Elin while glaring bloody daggers at him. As if this weak person could hold up to me. Said Sasuke as the great doors opened to see the prince sitting on his throne. Well. I thought I heard rats in my kingdom, but I had to see it for myself," said Naruto as his eyes glazed over with pure hatred. "Naruto-kun? Is that you?" asked Hinata, sounding as if she had never seen him for so long. "Hinata-chan? Is that you?" asked Naruto as he looked at her with pure love and compassion. "Naruto-kun?" She cheered as she ran to the throne with Naruto getting up and catching her in a tight hug. "I missed you forever." She sobbed into his chest as Naruto looked at her with love and admiration. "I missed you too," said Naruto as he leaned to her level and locked eyes with her. "Hinata-chan," whispered Naruto, closing his eyes. "Naruto-kun?" She purred as she too closed her eyes and brought her face to his. But when she thought she was going to get a kiss from Naruto, she received a more harsher approach to the matter. A firm punch into her abdomen sent her across the room and into Sakura, who had her mouth open at what just happened. "What the hell, Naruto? Why did you hit a girl?" asked Kakashi with an eye the size of dinner plates. "Because that bitch, I don't even hold the very audacity to look her in the eyes. Much less hold her for that matter. She is extremely lucky to be in my presence after what she did. Or what you all did for that matter," snarled Naruto as he sat back on his throne and began hitting his index finger on the armrest to show how agitated he was. "We aren't following," said Tenten. "Apart from you, Ten-san. These little shitstons took everything I held dear to me. I remember very clearly as to what happened all those months I was locked up. But I can see that you don't, so here is the rundown. Kakashi, you disowned me as your student. Which doesn't surprise me considering you only taught dumb fuck over there. My father would be turning in his grave right now. Sakura, you only wanted me around because you wanted someone to blame when things didn't go your way. Every time you were shot down by Sasuke for a date, you would hunt me down and beat the living shit out of me. I can't believe I liked you once upon a time," said Naruto in a sweet tone that only made Sakura cringe in fear as well as Kakashi. "That's not TR. Yes it is. You know it's true. You know how many times Ari-chan tried to heal my wounds from the countless beatings you gave me?" asked Naruto coldly. "And finally, Hinata. After a few months, you finally tell me that you loved me. But it was in the form of an insult by belittling me. And then to make matters worse, you damaged my arm's chakra cords. No worries there, as those were fake," said Naruto smiling cockily. Hinata just flared her Byakugan and looked away when she looked at Naruto. She was fully disorientated at what she saw when she looked at Naruto. "How can your chakra cords be fake?" asked Sasuke, clearly not believing it. "He has no chakra cords. They're non-existent. When I looked at him, his body was filled with a blinding light. One that I've never seen before," said Hinata as her vision slowly returned to her. "Give me that power, dope. I will be the master of it. Not the child of some bitch I found in a brothel and then fucked for a good few minutes," said Sasuke. That did it. Summoning the rune that enhanced blink, Naruto activated flashbang, blinding everyone in the room. When the ringing stopped and their vision returned, they found Naruto punching Sasuke in the face while swearing him about what his mother was really like. Mei and even Mocha had a tough time prying Naruto off Sasuke. Mei and Mocha entered the room to see what that blinding light was and found Naruto punching Sasuke in the face. "What was that for?" asked Sasuke, getting up off the ground and wiping his nose, which gushed with blood. "I don't give a fucking rat's ass as to who you are. You could be Kami and I would give you the fucking finger. Leave now. The next time I see you, I'll have you shot on sight." However, trailed Naruto as he looked at Tenten. "Ten-san. Do you miss Neji?" asked Naruto, making Tenten nod as a toned tear ran down her face. "He lives here in Yuzu now. You may go and see him if you wish," said Naruto as Neji walked into the room. "Naruto-san. Thank you for giving us an attention," asked Neji as he looked at Tenten, who was already running to him. "How dare you defy our ways?" snarled Hinata as she made the hints and her father showed her to activate the cage bird seal. "Oh no. I feel it no. Hehehe. Naruto already removed it," said Neji, moving his headband out the way to show a blemish-free, no-marked forehead. "But how? No one can remove the cage bird seal. Ha. Hate to break it to you, slut. But the cage bird seal is a byproduct of one of the seals my clan made. You and your clan are a bunch of thieves. And I thought I told you to leave," said Naruto as he activated his one power, making the mark of the outsider appear on the floor and out emerge a whole swarm of rats. "Just be warned, Naruto. You can't hold up against us. You know you need us," said Kakashi as he pushed everyone out the door. "And I would have believed that if I was in the village," shot back Naruto, making Kakashi flick from that. But them out his territory, Naruto let Neji take Tenten around the land and showed them where they were now living. Apparently, the new main branch had chosen to name Neji the new clan head and even treated Hanabi as one of the main family members. Equality and fairness was blooming in their new home. Naruto for his part turned in for the night with Mei and Kurenai sleeping with him. Apparently when Ari took the girls up to the Quaters, she told them that she was willing to share the young prince, but they each had to take turns each night as to who slept with him. At the far side of the hallway, Elin was too getting ready for bed. Putting on her nightgown that came up to her knees, she sat at her dresser and brushed her silky smooth silver hair. While she brushed it, her other hand made its way to her mouth and traced her lips while she stopped brushing her locks. The images of her kissing Naruto still vivid in her mind. Smiling at this notion that the king wanted her, she decided that tomorrow she would a little more aggressive in her approach. With this thought in mind, she climbed into the bed and fell asleep, dreaming of what her future would be like with Naruto. Chapter 7. Feel. Waking up to find he was staring at his sleeping body while he himself was walking around, Naruto couldn't help but feel like something was going on. As he watched his body he noticed the cracks on his left arm spread more to where it now covered his chest and his left thigh. Looking at his ghostly body, he saw the same position of the cracks as the ones on his body. That was when he gained the memories of Corvo, his ancestor. He had gained the last two powers. Wind Blast and Possession. He liked this idea. Now that he had gained the last of his powers he was wondering on whether or not the cracks would stop moving. "They went, young prince," came a voice from his right. Turning his head, he saw the outsider. Thinking as to why the outsider could see him like this, he realized that this was the only land in the elemental nations to have been touched by the void. The very soil seeped with its power. "When will it?" asked Naruto. "You still have 2 powers left to unlock. But they will only unlock when your powers have reached its peak. Which will be at a more later stage," said the outsider as he floated closer to Naruto. "Tread carefully, young prince. Your power will be tested in the coming days. As you noticed with the bandits, they had that music box that limited your powers and connection to the void. These were the only item that followed Corvo from Dunwall. Be careful," said the outsider in a serious tone. "I will. As well, what is with the altar? I get a powerful feeling from it," said Naruto, bringing a smile on the outsider's face. "That is the only well in all the elemental nations. It grows alongside you. When the next heir is born, the well recognizes the child as its new master. But in this case, the well was sealed off because it was resonating with your powers. When your parents sealed away the void inside you, the well was sealed as well. You could say, this castle is the heart of the void," said the outsider as he vanished from sight. "Yeah, thanks for that," said Naruto as his body returned to his body. Waking up he found Kurenai was looking into his eyes. Scarlet met heterochromic eyes. Even though the mark in his eye creeped her out, she still loved him. Chapter 8. Reunion. Waking up with a slight headache, Elin gazed around her as her surroundings became clear to her. She was in a bedroom, but that was when her senses fully awoke. She was lying naked under some blankets while some guy was snuggled up behind her, prodding her ass with what felt like his morning wood. Seeing Arifel lying close by, she reached for the sword and pulled it out slowly. Trying very hard not to wake the assaulter and still have the element of surprise. Finally getting the sword crafted from the void out, she swung it over her head, unleashing a powerful blast of wind at the man behind her, hitting him against the wall. If the sound of something slamming into the wall and the sounds of grunting heard after didn't come anything by. "How dare you assault me? The only person who is allowed to touch me like that is my king. Who gave you the right to do that to me? Say something now and I promise the pain will be minimal," said Elin as she wrapped her body up with a blanket used and held Arifel out, which had swirling violent wind moving around Elin in a defensive and offensive maneuver. Good morning to you too, Elin-chan," said Naruto as he scratched his head and looked at her, making her gasp at what she had done. She had completely attacked her own king and now he was her lover. That was when the moments of what happened last night came flooding back to her. Their reunion with the survivors of Yuzu, the festival and their date. But the last memory made her blush. Their time together where they gave into each other's desires. Their moment of pure innocent intimacy. Throwing the sword down and going to his side, she was rewarded with him pulling her down into his strong arms and a warm kiss placed on her lips. Her eyes widened in shock and soon she closed them as she wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer to her. Breaking after a full minute, she gazed into his dulled blue eye and placed a hand on the side of his face. "Now that is a morning I can wake up to," said Naruto cockily. "I love you," she said as she ran her other hand through his snow-white hair that was kept clean and neat. Despite its messy appearance, Naruto maintained its nature of being clean. Couldn't have messy, oily hair when you're fucking the girl you love now, can you? Getting up, Naruto went to go and shower, while Leland opened the curtains with a blanket around her still and walked over to the balcony. The people were busy getting ready and were also gathering in the village square, where the rock used to be that held the sword of the outsider. Naruto still had to think of a name for something like that. It had to be a perfect name for a perfect sword. Watching the people go about their business, Elin spotted a child looking at her while waving her hand. Elin smiled and waved back to the little one. Now that she was a lover to the king, she had literally been given a step up from the position as royal protector. She could now be with Naruto whenever she wanted, maybe even sit on his lap when he rendered judgment on a person or gave sanctuary to someone. The very thought made her go red with excitement. Hearing the shower stop, Naruto got out as his clothes appeared on his skin, concealing his nakedness. Eelin waked up to him, gave him a kiss to which he responded and allowed her to go in. Doing the same as Eelin when she waited for Naruto, he looked out beyond the great village that held more survivors than the village he and Taiya went to. That was when his mind clicked. Taiya, ever since he had taken her to Yuzu, she had become more bloodthirsty than ever before. Sure, when they were enemies, she fought hard, but this was on a whole new level. Something must be driving her to act so irrational like that. He would have to pull her aside to talk to her as to why she was acting that way. Naruto had his suspicions, but he couldn't place his finger on it. Seeing the people in the distance standing there, he counted close to 122 dozen people in the crowd there. They looked to be waiting for something, and that was when Naruto's mind clicked. They were waiting for them. Hearing a knock on the door, he opened it up to see a civilian woman standing before him. She was holding out a letter which bared the mark of the outsider. This was either a message from Yuzu, or it was from some Yuzu survivors who had caught wind of what everyone was now talking about. Thanking her and closing the door, he opened the sealed letter and read it over. What was written went as follows. Dear Void Prince. We have recently heard that you have gained the power that the prophecy stated. That a child of the last Yuzu princess would gain power that would unite the torn kingdom of the Uzumaki name and rule over all, creating the Uzumaki Empire. We would very much like to be part of that goal, so we have left our village to return to Yuzu. We will see you soon, Void-sama. We will back you up no matter what. Even if it meant going to hell itself. From Karen Uzumaki. Shrine Priestess. With more people gathering to Yuzu, the better. His return and awakening had spread like wildfire, further than he even hoped it would go. This was going better than he had hoped for. And plus, the letter was genuine. Reason behind why it was genuine was because of the fact that the letter bared the mark of the outsider. Only in Uzumaki could replicate the mark of the outsider on an official document and not be sent to the void, which would result them in being destroyed by the overwhelming presence of the void. So the letter was real and not a fake. Hearing the shower stop, he took Eelin's clothes and handed them to her as the door opened. She thanked him with a smile and closed the door again. Sitting on the bed that was ruffled and messy, he summoned the sword he got yesterday. Looking it over, he found it sang a very powerful pitch. Getting up off the bed, he swung the blade. Nothing happened, only the sound of the blade swooshing past was heard. Closing his eyes, he began to concentrate. As he focused on the blade, the sword began to give off a very dark aura about it. Black smoke steamed off the blade as the sounds of groaning were heard. Snapping his eyes open, he shouted for all to hear. Void chains. He shouted, and what looked like actual chains shot out the ground on the bottom floor and wrapped around two people that looked to be jumping up to apprehend him. Seeing their cloaks, he deduced that they were the infamous Akatsuki. But his eyes widened as he looked at the one in particular. It was Itachi Uchiha. Sasuke's older brother. And from the looks in his eyes, he wasn't wanting any trouble. Releasing the chains around Itachi while tightening the one around the weird shark human thing, he told Eelin where he was going, to which she replied it was okay and blinked down to where they were. Well. If it isn't the Kyuubi brat. Let's take one arm or maybe a leg, that way we can go in peace. Said the shark man. I suggest you don't piss him off, kiss him. He is after all the last of the royal Uzumaki bloodline. Said Itachi in a bored tone. So what? Asked Kisum, making the chains tighten around him. Because that means I hold a power thought to have been vanquished. Too bad that isn't true. Said Naruto as he looked at Kisum, who was still struggling. You're probably wondering why that idiot sword isn't eating the chains. That's easy, Naruto-sen's power is no longer chakra. It is something even better. Mana. The lifeblood of the void. Said Itachi. Then why aren't you attacking him? Asked Kisum, wondering why there was no chains wrapped around him. Easy. I'm betraying the Akatsuki. To join Naruto-san. The outsider came to me in a dream, saying that he can help me with my illness. Said Itachi as he pulled out a kunai and drove it into Kisum, killing the shark instantly. Naruto used his devouring swarm power to eat away at the sword, which had a copy of Kisum inside it, and ate that copy, just as Kisum gained conscience inside the body. His cry was a beautiful sound. Naruto-san. No, Naruto-sama. I bow to you. But I request one thing from you along with my renewed health when we get back. Said Itachi, bowing to the floor. Name it. Said Naruto. Please save Konan. She too shares my belief to stop Akatsuki. She and I want a better future. We have to help her. Said Itachi, now sounding desperate. Why didn't she follow you here? Asked Naruto. She would have, but sadly, she was caught hiding pictures of the outsider. She had been given the gift of seeing into the void because she was born with 1/10 Uzumaki blood. She can even decipher some of the words of the outsider's markings. They say only a select few are born with the gift. The royal family and even more few outside that," said Itachi. "I'll make it happen. We'll save Konan from Akatsuki. But it has to be at a later stage," said Naruto, making Itachi get up. "I understand. Thank you," said Itachi, crying tears of joy. "Who is this?" asked Elin, walking over to Naruto and leaning into his embrace. Making Naruto wrap an arm around her waist and pulled her closer while placing a kiss on her head. "This is our new friend. Elin-chan, meet Itachi-san. Itachi-san, meet my lover, Elin-chan," said Naruto with Itachi holding out his hand. "Nice to meet you, my lady," said Itachi. "Likewise," responded Elin as she shook his hand. Handing Itachi a rock with the mark of the outsider, he placed a rune which had the ability for Naruto to use flashbang. He told Itachi that it was now imbued with the power to blink. But it is a one-way trip. It was programmed to get him teleported to Yuzu where someone there can treat him. All he had to do was crush the rock. Thanking him and doing just that, he vanished from sight and appeared in front of the Yuzu gates. The village was now rebuilt much to the thanks of the Void helping out with the reconstruction. "And that is how Naruto-kun and I had finally had sex," came a voice from behind Itachi. Turning around to see who it was, his eyes widened at who it was. It was Ari, but he didn't know that. All he saw was a bombshell of a woman with 9 fluffy white tails behind her, and she also mentioned Naruto's name. So Itachi couldn't touch that. It was off limits. Besides, he was terribly in love with Konan, he would never go against her. "Who are you?" asked the girl next to Ari. She had long pink hair, a uniform one with a rosario attached to a chain which was attached to a choker around her neck. She was very beautiful. "I allied with Naruto-sama. He said I can get treatment here. I have a very deadly illness," said Itachi. "Let's go," said Mocha as she and Ari took Itachi to the remade hospital. But Naruto and Elin. But the village people now going to Yuzu and he and Elin making their way to the village Swan was in. Elin for her part was slightly uncomfortable about what she found out today when she opened the cabinet in the bathroom of their room in the hotel. She had found some pregnancy testers and she decided to take one just in case and see what it would come back with. She thought it was impossible to the fact, but she took it still. Imagine her shock when the test came back positive. She was pregnant. "Ayano? Naruto-kun?" she asked as her eyes darted everywhere while she rubbed her hands in front of her. What is it?" asked Naruto as he looked to her, making her look away with a red face. "What do you feel about family?" she asked in a nervous tone. "I'd like to have one day. A family where they can be happy and not feel like they are different. A place where they can be safe, to be able to say, 'I'm home.' That is the family I'd like," said Naruto, making Elin's eyes open in shock. He had the same goals in mind for a family as her. "That's nice," said Elin as she looked at him with love in her eyes. "What brings this up?" asked Naruto, turning to her. "It's just that. I found some pregnancy tests in the cabinet in the bathroom of our room in that hotel. Thinking it was silly that I couldn't be pregnant after spending one night with you in bed, I took it anyway. And quite frankly," she said as she looked at him and placed a hand on her belly, making Naruto's eyes widen. "Wait. Are you saying?" asked Naruto as he looked at her, which made her nod her head. "I'm pregnant and the child is definitely yours," said Elin with tears running down her cheeks. Wiping one of the eyes dry, Naruto kissed her on the lips, making her moan into him and wrap her arms around his neck. Breaking the kiss, they looked at each other, with a string of saliva still connecting them. "I will cherish our child together with you," said Naruto as he kissed her again, while licking her lips, asking for permission, to which she gladly gave. "Ahem," came a voice breaking them out of it. Turning to look at who it was, Naruto became overcome with joy and sprung to who it was. Standing before him was the very people he wanted to see again. Tsunade and Shizune were standing right in front of him. Even though they shared similar thoughts to Kurenai regarding his new look, they didn't care. Naruto was Naruto, even though he was broken and scarred, he would always be the same to them, but no longer to those he called his friends. Sure, there were a few that were choosing their way out, but they had to wait for that moment to come around again. "Tsunade Ba-chan. Shizune Ni-chan," said Naruto as he smiled to them with love. "Good to see you again, Gaki. How have you been?" asked Tsunade as she smiled to him. "Doing good. Just found out from my lover here that she's pregnant with my child." "Oh, this is my lover, Elin-chan." "Elin-chan, this is Tsunade Ba-chan and my surrogate sister, Shizune Ni-chan," said Naruto as he showed them Elin. "Nice to meet you," said Elin as she bowed to them. Doing the same, Tsunade did a quick diagnostic jutsu on her and her face lightened up with happiness. Looking to Naruto and nodded her head, she and Shizune smiled. "Congrats, Naruto-san. You're gonna be a father. The child is definitely yours and the child will be the next in line to the throne," said Tsunade. "That is right," said Naruto smiling and hugging Elin while thanking her for now carrying his legacy. She just smiled and stated that it was her pleasure. With that now sorted out, they made their way to Yuzu, where Naruto could finally feel back with the void. Being away from his main source of power is hard, as it takes longer for him to replenish his mana, but if he was fighting at his home, it would be okay. Asking if they wanted to travel through means of the Naruto Express, they all denied it and decided to walk back to Yuzu. Naruto nodded his head and banished the rune and walked alongside them. "Why didn't you wait for us at the village you were at?" asked Naruto, thinking a bit on that. Tsunade wanted a change of scenery. And plus, she maxed out her limit with the gambling, said Shizune as she looked over to Naruto. Figures, said Naruto as they carried on walking. But Danzu, sitting in the Hokage office with the two elders sitting beside him, he looked at the team which went to Yuzu to try and bring Naruto back. But sadly, it didn't work. Danzu was not having an ear of it. He wanted to know if he could gain back his weapon. But if Hinata's show of affection didn't work, then it may be too late. That was when he remembered something. Pulling out a small black box and placing it on the table, he handed it to Sasuke. "What is it?" asked Sasuke, opening the box to reveal some weird mechanics. "It's called a music box. It plays a nasty song for us. But it is even worse seeing as to what you described with Naruto having those powers. There is only way. Use that box," said Danzu. "What will it do?" asked Hinata. "From what I learned, it will create a restriction around Naruto, making him vulnerable to attacks, and from there, we can go and apprehend him once more. As well, even gain Yuzu all to ourselves," said Danzu, making Sasuke smile, thinking he now had his means to take Elin from Naruto and force her to make powerful children for him. And if she was pregnant before he could impregnate her, he'd wait for the child to be born and then kill the bastard child. Will Sasuke get what he wants? Only time will tell. And with his hands on a music box that limits Naruto's powers, things will be getting very interesting. Chapter 9. Unshackled. Walking into the gates of Yuzu, Naruto felt more at home than anything in the world. Swan and Shizune were in awe at what they were seeing. Yuzu was more lively than the last time they were here. Tsunade had come to Yuzu in the past to gamble, but that was so long ago. There were many tourist attractions. One being the stadium which had just been completed. Their tournaments were held and various other things. It looked more different than the one in Konoha, as this one had more of a coliseum vibe to it, similar to the ones from ancient times. Showing them around the city, Naruto came into contact with Ari and Mocha, who were still shopping around for various things. Their arms were full of various bags, ranging from clothes to perfumes. Naruto just smiled as he shook his head. But his musings were cut short as he heard some people making their way to him. Spinning on the balls of his heels, he saw several civilians holding what Naruto found to be a new rune. Must have been just created. "Naruto-sama. We have just finished creating a new rune. It has already been imbued with the power of the void in the presence of Outsider Sama and is ready to recognize you as its new master," said the civilian as he held the rune out for Naruto to take. Staring at the rune, Naruto could not only hear the song it gave off, but also feel the power rolling off it. Reaching out, he grabbed the rune and felt all the power the outsider had placed into it flowing into his body. Mana swirled around his arms and gathered in his hands. 4 marks of the outsider gathered around him, and from them emerged a full swarm's worth of 4 rats from each mark. An entire sea of rats just came out of nowhere. After the rune's power had finally gotten adjusted to Naruto's, his muscles relaxed and his body finally calmed down. Mocha was so intrigued by what Naruto had done, she picked up one of the rats and watched it. The thing just looked at her and then squeak, as if to say that it liked her. Mocha smiled to the rat and placed it back onto the ground. With this knowledge, Naruto finally came to realize he had 3 powers in a boosted capacity. "So you now have 3 powers you can bring into an amplified state," came a voice above them. Looking up, the civilians gathered all dropped to their knees, while Naruto just nodded to the outsider who was floating above him. "I have. There must be a reason why you're here," said Naruto, making the outsider nod his head. "As a matter of fact, there is. Now that you have 3 powers in an amplified state, you can enter a form known as Void Manifest. It uses the 3 powers you have and turns you into a being of ultimate power. But it doesn't last long and will leave you severely fatigued. So use it wisely," said the outsider as he floated down to Naruto's level. "How fatigued?" asked Naruto. "You will be asleep for more than a day, as all your mana is eaten away at such a high rate," said the outsider, making Naruto's eyes go wide. Naruto looked at the outsider and just smiled. "I'll take that chance," said Naruto. "I hope your outcome is very enjoyable," said the outsider as he vanished from sight, leaving a smiling Naruto. "Who was that?" asked Tsunade. "That was the outsider. The one who gave me my powers," said Naruto, with Mocha, Ari and Elin nodding their heads. At that moment, Naruto was tackled from the back by a very happy sounding someone. The only thing Naruto could feel on his back was the set of glorious mounts pressed up against his back. After a few minutes the woman got off Naruto and he got up and turned to see it was his fiancée. May. "Hello big boy." She purred as she smiled seductively to him. "Hello my love," said Naruto as he took her hand and kissed it. She just smiled lustfully to him and licked her lips. "How about we get settled in the castle?" said Naruto making the group gathered nod. Getting off her fiancé, May walked over to Ari and Mocha and walked with them. Opening the great doors. Tsunade and Shizune gasped at the sheer size of the building Naruto was staying in. But at that moment, Yugao, Kurenai and Hana made their way down from the second floor and smiled to Naruto. Kurenai had a very big smile on her face. No doubt because she was happy that her lover was okay. Getting Tsunade and Shizune settled in the palace, Naruto sat down on his throne while his lovers and girlfriends gathered around him. "I want you all to know that I love you all. But I have some very exciting news for you all," said Naruto with a smile as Elin nodded her head and knowing where this was going. "I am going to be a father," added Naruto making the girls gasp in surprise. "Who is the mother?" asked Kurenai. "Elin-chan. She and I had sex when we went to the village to search for Tsuan-ba-chan and Shizune-ni-chan. She found out she was pregnant when she took a pregnancy test and now the child will be born soon. 9 months and I will have my heir," said Naruto smiling. The girls that loved Naruto trusted him enough and simply agreed that this was something they all wanted. But they were agreeing that this was nice, but as long as they get their own children with Naruto. He agreed and the terms and conditions were set. But just as they were about to head on to who would sleep with the prince next, the doors burst open to reveal a civilian standing there and he looked to be breathing heavily. "Naruto-sama. We have a problem," said the civilian. "What is it?" asked Naruto looking at the civilian. "The rats have returned," said the civilian making Naruto's blood boil to new heights. He made it clear that they shouldn't come back here. "Looks like some idiots don't learn. Let me take care of the worms. I will butcher them in the name of you," said Taiya coming out of her hiding place. "That's enough Taiya. I will handle this myself. When this is done, I want to have a word with you," said Naruto making Taiya look at Naruto with a surprised look. "Why yes my master," she said as she bowed to him as he got up and walked out. The void burning into existence around him. Heading to the gates, Naruto found the rats that he told were never to return. And on top of that, it looks like some of them came with more people. He saw Kiba, Shikamaru and Choji there. So he decided to focus his anger on their ringleader. "Sasuke. I thought I told you to stay away from here. Looks like some idiots never learn," said Naruto as he looked at them with a cold gaze. "Naruto-san. We don't want to hurt you. But these guys forced us to do it," said Shikamaru. His words sounded genuine. "You still think you can hurt me? I will make you bow to me," said Sasuke as he glared at Naruto with a very cocky smile. "Wanna test that theory out?" asked Naruto. "I will make you bow to me," said Sasuke. "Let's go to the stadium. There we can prove who is the best, once and for all," said Naruto. After a few minutes, a very large crowd had gathered to witness the sheer power that their king held. Waiting at one of the doors we find Naruto standing there. In his one hand hovered 2 runes, the ones which was used to make flashbang and void visible. Coming up behind him we find May and Mocha. May latched onto Naruto from behind him and nibbled on his ear. "Be careful out there. I would like to have my future husband back in one piece," said May in his ear. "Believe me. I will do everything I can to show that bastard how outclassed he really is," said Naruto as he turned around and gave May a peck on the lips. "Be careful out there. I want you to be the one who I marry in the future," said Mocha as she walked up to him and hugged him. "I'll keep my word that I will be the one you marry," said Naruto as he returned the hug. Walking out into the stadium, the crowds cheered for their king as the 2 fighters got to their positions. Yugao walked down to them and acted as the referee for the match. "This match, as the request of Naruto-sama. It will be a fight to the death. Any means of attack can be used and the match will be determined by the killing of the other," said Yugao making Sasuke's eyes go wide. "What? Are you scared of a few raised stakes?" asked Naruto cockily. "Never thought you would go that far," shot back Sasuke. "Ready?" said Yugao as she raised her hand. "Page 'em," she said and jumped back. Naruto brought out his sword and used blink straight out the gate. Appearing behind Sasuke, he swung a punch but was blocked by Sasuke. His eyes widened when he realized that Sasuke had just seen his attack. Jumping back, Naruto swung the sword and sent a wave in the shape of a crescent moon straight at Sasuke. "Void Slicer," he shouted as the attack was launched. Jumping out the way just as the attack made contact with the ground, Sasuke's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. The attack energy alone had caused the one area to become a crater. Just how powerful was that sword? Never mind that, he still had his trump card. And he decided to use it now. Up in the stands, Kakashi smiled as he knew this would be where Naruto would be helpless. This was the very object that would make Naruto weak and he would be forced to go back to Konoha where he belonged like the chained-up dog he was. I'm impressed, Dope. But you're no match for this. Said Sasuke as he pulled out the object Danzo gave him, making Naruto's eyes widen in shock. That can't be. Said Naruto as he shook in fear. It was the very object that limited his powers. You bastard. Said Naruto as he summoned up the flashbang rune. But as he teleported, Sasuke opened the box up and the awful noise hit Naruto's ears, stopping the power in its tracks with the sword vanishing out of existence and Naruto dropping who was in mid-teleport to the floor clutching his ears and he yelled in pain. Naruto-kun. Said Elin as she and the girls leaned forward in horror. He has got another ability. But with this going on I doubt he could make it materialize. Said Ari as Kurenai, Hana and Elin looked at her with confusion. What do you mean by other power? Asked Kurenai. Void Manifest. Replied Ari making the realize that it was a new power that the outsider gave him. Naruto was not having a very good time. The only time he had felt like this was when he and Elin went to get rid of those bandits. So how did Konoha gain those cursed music boxes? But that was when his mind clicked. Deciding to play it out. He began to gather mana. Even though his powers were restricted he forced his body to gather it in a very high rate. He was going to use the power of Void Manifest. Sasuke was laughing uncontrollably. Placing the music box down, he walked over to Naruto who was still clutching his head. Grabbing him by the throat, he lifted him up. You're so pathetic. No matter how much power you get, you will always be weaker than me. Said Sasuke as he threw Naruto into the wall. Not yet, thought Naruto as he continued to gain more mana. Even with all these powers. They will always be weaker than the Sharingan. Said Sasuke as he kicked Naruto a few feet away. Nearly there, thought Naruto as he saw Sasuke smiling at him along with the idiots who thought Sasuke was always better than Naruto. And that beautiful girl named Elin will be my wife. And I'll force her to make powerful children for me. He said as he grabbed Naruto by the throat. Now. Shouted Naruto and all the mana he had forcibly gathered exploded everywhere around him. Bringing him into the form known as Void Manifest. What? How can this be? Said Sasuke as he grabbed his arm as the mana burned his arm. Naruto took on a very powerful form that he thought was never even possible. His entire body steamed with black mana as he began to hover in midair. Similar to that of the outsider. His eyes were even the same as the outsider's eyes. What is this? Asked Sasuke. I am all. And I am none. I am life. And I am death. And you are nothing. Disappear. Said Naruto as he pointed to Sasuke. His left arm erupted in a burst of blood and bone. His screams were heard as Kakashi, Hinata and Sakura gasped in shock. Sasuke's arm literally exploded and the blood went everywhere. But Naruto wasn't done there. Using his devouring plague ability, he pointed his hand at Sasuke and 4 macros of the outsider appeared on the ground. Instantly rats poured out and swarmed around Sasuke. And with that done, they waited for Naruto's order. Any last words? Asked Naruto. Go to hell. Said Sasuke. Sorry. Can't go to hell. The void will claim me. But nice try. Said Naruto as he snapped his fingers, setting the rats on him. For the remainder of the time elapsed. Sasuke's screams of pain as he was devoured alive echoed through the ears of everyone. Kakashi backed away in fear. Hoping he could give Naruto the slip. But as he took a step back, Ari and Elin were seen in front of him. Both having a very angry look on their faces. Naruto-kun wanted you to stay away. For that. You will face execution. Said Elin making Ari smile a very sadistic smile. He will never execute me. He is too soft. Said Kakashi with Hinata and Sakura backing him up. You sure about that? Asked Ari as she looked over to see the rat's finish of Sasuke. The only thing left was the bones. Looking back, Kakashi's face paled at what he saw. Naruto had definitely changed. No longer was the innocent man. But was the monster that would even make Satan himself tremble with fear. Then get it over with. Kill me. Said Kakashi. No. Naruto-kun wouldn't want that. He'd rather have some fun with you. Your execution will be at dawn in 3 days' time. During that time, you will get to know a very good friend. Said Kurenai as she walked into the scene. And with that said. Three girls took all those that did Naruto wrong into the cells. Where they will be judged and even tortured for what they had done. Naruto was seriously going to enjoy this. But just as he took one step, his void manifest power vanished and he dropped to the floor. Landing with a common thud. Mei and Mocha along with Hana and Yugao surrounded the Void Prince as they searched him if he was hurt. The only thing they found wrong was that he was so exhausted. Picking him up, they carried him to the castle. This time it was Mocha's and Yugao's turn to sleep with him in the same bed. In Konoha. Hokage Mansion. Snapping his eyes open as a massive intake of air could be heard as he snapped his back to be sitting up. He looked around to find that he was still in Konoha. But the clone he sent to Yuzu was eaten by the rats. Gritting his teeth at just how powerful his former teammate had become, Sasuke walked out the office he was in and made his way back to his home. "I will have that power. Even if it kills me," said Sasuke as he made his hand into a fist. Never mind the fact that those that went with the flesh and blood clone were going to die very soon. He only cared for power. What if Rookie 9 betrayed Naruto Chunin exam's harem? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.